What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Between Two Heads. My name is Jameson, Welbourn. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Addison, DeMoura. And today we are joined by Max of Terrptopia. Max, thank you so much for joining us, bro.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm really excited to do this.
Bro,
what's up, Max?
Here. So before we get into the exciting work that you're doing today, as always, we like to take it back a little bit and learn a little bit about the man behind the resin. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you grew up?
I grew up in Portland, Oregon. I was there for, I would say, 12, 13 years of my life. We moved to Eastern Washington when we were homeless. So kind of grew up pretty hard, kind of did the figuring out life thing at an early age. And I kind of knew that college wasn't going to be of access, so I started going the cannabis route, So I started hustling when I was pretty young in high school. And kind of just took me down the route of staying in cannabis, and I never got out of it. Just kind of brought me to the point where I'm at. I've never left Eastern Washington. I've kind of stayed here for the last 15, 16 years. So it's been,
how long were you homeless for, Max?
We were homeless for about a year. We went through different what do they call them? Like homeless houses for families and shit. Because I had my mom and dad with me, so we did that for at least 6 months, and then we kind of bounced from friend to friend. My parents were drug addicts at the time, so they were kind of figuring out life themselves too. So as they brought us up to Eastern Washington, where I had a grandma up here, so that was kind of like the only outlet we had for family. So when I came up here, it was just like it was different, because I came from a place that had culture, a lot of different things going on, just it was just different, a bigger city. And I went to the pretty much sticks, where I'm at in Eastern Washington is really, really rural. It's really low key. There's really not much going on. It's one of the biggest cities, but I would say as far as cannabis goes, we really kind of keep our head down and we kind of just grind it out.
So what were your early experiences, or what was your early perception of cannabis like growing up in a household where parents have substance abuse problems? Sometimes the kids tend to maybe group cannabis in with all those other drugs and take a really negative look at it. How did that work for you?
So for me, I was always around cannabis. So my parents were also cannabis users, but they, my dad was in and out of jail, so it was kind of, more apparent he was doing more than cannabis, So as we got older, because I have an older brother, a half brother, same mom, different dads. As we got older, me and my brother just kind of chopped it up as what they were doing was dope, and what cannabis was cannabis, and my parents got. It was really apparent, because they used cannabis as a crutch to kind of stay, away from everything, especially moving to a place they didn't know anybody, where they could have went and fucked up pretty easy, So for me, I never saw it as I need to stray away from it type of thing. I saw it as it was in front of me. My parents they didn't hide it, they smoked weed in the car and shit like that, So I remember being a kid. And in our household, it wasn't you were allowed just to smoke, when my parents got their shit together, it was, they had a pretty strong household, I couldn't smoke when I was under 18 and shit. I did, but they, I wasn't in their household fucking, in the room next door blowing down fucking bong rips and shit, as much as I would like to, and that's why I moved out. I moved out my senior year, just for that reason, so I could get out and do shit like that,
So, and how long did it? Oh, sorry. How long did it take? I was just wondering more about your parents in that situation. How long did it take for them to? Because you said they eventually got their stuff together. How long did that take? Was that a short period, or was it kind of? And what was that like? Did something happen? What was kind of that story?
When we were bouncing around in Portland, they were already trying, and you can, when it comes to being an addict, and being, going to jail, you can only try so hard when you're stuck in that same circle, So they were really trying, and I think they had really burned every bridge as far as family went, because I was my older brother got to go and be with his dad's family, I was stuck with my parents. I had to go through all this shit. I stood in soup lines the whole night Like, it was, it definitely was, it's pretty crazy, so like to see them stuck there. And then my mom had her mom here, my grandma, so like they just went for it. And as soon as we got here, they were honestly, I didn't see any kind of drug activity that they would do like that. We were honestly a pretty straight family, like as soon as we got to Washington.
That's cool. That's good. That's good to hear, because it's always one of those things, like and the reason I ask is because I had sort of the same upbringing, not the homelessness and stuff, but definitely had my mom was wild and crazy and sort of dealt with that. But it was the hard drugs and all that stuff. I know that makes it really tough. Like, it makes it so hard to even sort of, and when you're a kid, you don't really know, but just for getting your shit together, there's not a lot of like functional, heavy drugs.
Well, you think and that's the crazy part about it, is like growing up is like I thought I had it understood that, and seeing they were just growing up themselves, like it's trippy as it is, like you don't ever think about that process, but like your parents are, we all grow up every day, so to see them get it is, it's just like a happy moment for me as an adult. I'm like that, they have their shit together. I have a little brother too, so it's they've done great. They've done great in life. It was just it was a different upbringing, like especially coming to a place where at the time, this town didn't have a whole lot of I would say culture. Like there wasn't a whole lot of kids like me that talked with, I got called a wigger a lot, stuff like that, just had more like slang, and stuff like that in their vocabulary at a young age too, so like it was just weird. Like kids were allowed when I was in middle school to come to school with pocket knives and have 2 in their back pocket and shit, like it was a trip, and I went from getting searched in metal detector to that. It was like, what the fuck is this? This is a crazy difference of life, so like
what was the first experience with cannabis? Like, do you have a memory of your first interaction with the plant?
Oh yeah. So like my parents being, smokers as it was, like they would smoke in their bedroom to be like, I'd say respectful, to not smoke the whole house up and shit like that. At night, my dad would occasionally sit on the couch and smoke and shit like that, but they would leave all their shit in their bedroom. So, I had the tons of opportunities to hey, I'm sick, I'm staying home for school, or they'd go real quick and I'd sneak in the room, rip a bong rip down or whatever. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I was scraping resin and shit before I even knew that was like what you were supposed to do. I was just like, okay, this is right here. I could throw this in the bowl and get, smoke it potentially, But my first time was definitely like, I remember my dad got went and got a bag. They were smoking. They left to go get his food. And I snuck in there. I want to say 8th grade. That was 8th grade summer, and I snuck in there and we just took like a handful of weed, and I ended up sharing it with another homie, but I smoked right there. And I remember my mom and dad coming home and kind of like hit head in the air, like bloodhound status, like, oh, what is this? What's going on? And that was the funniest part, is growing up in there, like I would steal cannabis from them, or they always smoked pot. They never had hash or anything when I was a kid, like they're mainly like joint and bong smokers. They smoked, a little tiny bong like this tall and just rip bong rips, type shit. So it was funny. I would take, their little bit of weed, and they would fight with each other over it. They'd be like, "Oh, you stole it," and shit like that, So that was a really, looking back now, a funny thing to me, because I'm like, that would suck getting your head stash stolen, and you don't know who's doing it.
Did you ever like tell them later on that you were the one that was causing all that trouble?
Oh yeah. They figured out that I was a little menace, in the household doing it, and I think it took a while. Like even my mom was the first person to cave in. Like I was 16 and I'd get my mom herb and shit, because she knew what was going on, like I started hustling when I was 15, 16, so she kind of understood what the deal was. My dad, it took him until I was 17, 18 to kind of like come around. I remember driving down the road and he all casually sets the pipe down in between us, and I was like, that was the first time I ever smoked with my dad, so it was, cannabis with your parents, it's cool, because now as an adult, like I can really enjoy cannabis with them, like looking back at it then, like, they tried to run the household good, like they didn't allow us to do do drugs or drink or smoke or anything. Like I started smoking cigarettes when I was like 12, you know, and like luckily I stopped doing that, you know, after, you know, 5-6 years or whatever it was, you know. But like shit like you just start things early when you go from I think a bigger vibe to a smaller town, you know. Like I was just so exposed to so much more, you know. So and then I got to an area where I could do way more like at all times. Like I wasn't afraid to walk outside at night, you know. It was, you know, like it's just different, you know. Like I could go anywhere I wanted in this town and not feel scared because you're not going to get like fucked with by a homeless person or, you know, some random fucking, you know, something random, you know. So like it just changed a lot when we came to Eastern Washington, like a lot.
So what was high school like for you, being that city kid and now in this new environment? Like, was it hard to adjust, or did it?
I got friends right away. Like being in middle school, like I got a pretty good group of friends that like transitioned into high school, and I ended up switching high schools mid high school, like my sophomore year, to go to a bigger high school, and that's where I really like we started hustling. Like me and my boy, I call him my brother, my like dude I started this business with, Terrptopia, Andrew. He like we just kind of developed a plan to start hustling, and that's just what we've been doing ever since. You know, like I went to another school, he took the school that we had, and we just, you know, kind of did our thing, you know. So it was in high school it was an easy transition because everybody wants to be your friend when you got bags, you know. Like it's
Sure.
a gig, you know. You pull up to a party, you know, everyone, it's a fun time, you know.
For
So
sure.
like, high school was easy, and I love sports too. So like I played sports and shit. So like I wasn't like a loner because I came from a different city by any means or anything like that. You know, like I had tons of friends. Like out here, it's kind of crazy because like I didn't get a chance to like go back to Portland too much and like do things while I was in high school. Like I'd do it in summertime and go see family. But like as far as friends go, like I mainly like grew up with friends up here. So like a lot of it was like in the summer bonfire parties and shit like that. Like they, you know, they're Hicks, you know, so it's a different vibe, you know, big old fucking house parties. And it's just, you know, that's what high school was, you know. It was a crazy moment, you know.
Oh yeah,
For sure.
You know,
what when did you first start cultivating?
So my boy Andrew, we moved out when we were our senior year. So he had actually turned 18 and I was still 17 at the moment, and we got a little trailer that we had moved into, and we've been living in it for a minute. And his cousin had brought back some beans from Canada, some lemon skunk, and they popped those. And when my boy moved out, he set me up with just a little 1,000 little HPS in my closet, you know. I had something going at my spot, he had something going at his spot, you know. So like I was, you know, 17, 18, you know, like right then and there, like and we had I think I can't even remember all the strains back then, but you know, lemon skunk, white widow, man, there was permafrost. We had a bunch of old strains, and I don't even know if some of these strains made it around the other markets. Like thinking back on it, like I had my room covered in High Times magazines and shit, and like a lot of the strains you only saw, like I saw white widow and stuff, but like I didn't see permafrost. I think, you know, that could have been like something more local to us, you know.
yeah.
Or, you know, but like lemon skunk, I remember when we got the beans for that, like when his cousin popped those and we all got clones and we were able to grow those out. Like I remember like that was a big deal because that was a Cannabis Cup winner, and it was like, whoa, like, you know, like this is fucking cool, you know, like this is something that we should be proud of, you know. So like getting exposed to some cool strains at I think young part of my cannabis, you know, like career was also really good, you know. Like I had a buddy when I was 17 that was running hydrocarbons. He was one of the first, I would say, people in this area that I knew that was like really doing it, you know. And he had so many strains. He was always buying stuff out of High Times, and just it was a trip to see it, you know. Like I was tripped out that dude was buying, you know, $1,000 worth of seeds through a magazine, you know, sending money orders through a magazine. And to see like I would say a library like that at a young age, like I think more or less exposed us to like want to grow different pot, you know, early on.
Yeah,
We just
what possible.
Yeah, we stay with the same shit. We never did, you know, even like, I want to say my first grow, I had 2 or 3 strains, you know, like under, you know, a 1 lighter, you know, it was just in a little closet. Like that was my first time that we even tried to grow weed, you know, so like it was, and that was different. Like every other grow that I ever went to, they only had like 1 strain. Yeah. You know, I go, you look in a field or wherever it was, you know, they had 1 strain, or their basement 1 strain, you know, they didn't have a library, you know, so like to see that, like, I think that was a big part of like trying to go harder, you know, like right off the rip, like we got to see different cannabis and we got to see it all the time. Yeah. You know.
So you mentioned that you had a buddy in high school running hydrocarbon. So you were exposed to concentrates, clearly. Like at what age did that first introduction start?
Oh, whoa. So we smoked hash when I was like, I want to say 15, 16 off a metal swing, little TI swing with the glass hood. Like that was the first time I would say dabbed, but like hydrocarbon extracts, yeah, like 17, 18, like I had a buddy who was open blasting, and you know, he actually got a what the fuck are those things called? They used to sell them in the back of High Times. It was
honeybee.
Maybe it was what'd you say?
Is it a busy bee or a honeybee?
No, it was something that you would like run like herbs and spices with. Like it was like a super.
It's the isolator extractor. Is that what it was? Like that weird one that had like the tube down with the thing.
And butane through. You ran butane through it. It was.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it had it in the back, and it was like he spent like $1,700 on this thing, and we would run it in his kitchen. Super sketchy. It had an outlet fucking line, and you would put it out there, and like the guy was older than me. He was, I want to say 25, 26 when I was, you know, 17, 18. So a little older, a little bit more into it, you know, and dumbasses would be smoking cigarettes and shit in there while we're open blasting, you know, with this little, I can't think of the life for me what it was. It was all stainless though. It was pretty cool for the time. Little tiny small thing. You could put probably a quarter, half ounce of, you know, trim and bud and larf and shit in there, you know. But I always remember it'd come out like Hershey syrup, black. Just black. We weren't purging it or nothing. Just the darkest stuff. He would always, when we'd run it and make it, he'd always have like the randomest containers, whether it was like an Altoids container or some random shit to put it in, you know, like it was so like young, like nobody was doing this.
Yeah.
You couldn't go to the store and even get gear to smoke the shit. Like I remember the first store that had it was a Chinese shop here, and they had like little tiny glass nails with the domes and shit, and that was like the first spot that had it, you know, and like you explode fucking 20 nails to get, you know, everyone high, and that was that. You know, like but yeah, that was a trip, you know, being young and seeing hydrocarbons like right away. Like I kind of knew that was the wave right off the rip, like knowing that you could take 1 dab and not have to smoke a dub stack to be stoned was, you know, a change. You know, it was going to change the market. So like kind of right off the rip, I started more or less going towards, I would say, the hydrocarbon or like concentrate route, like early on, you know, like we had experienced and like messed with bubble bags and stuff when we were younger, but like smoking green hash was not fun, you know. Like,
no.
I would say not smoking like dark Hershey syrup BHO is not fun either, but you know, as time goes on, like some things would have flavor, you know. Like I remember the first time we even open blasted fresh frozen, you know, froze the whole tube and got like maybe a gram out of it, you know, and it was just different, you know. Like you could see the like cannabis changing and the scene changing like right in front of my eyes, and that was, I would say, cool, because being where I'm at, like all I got was like the High Times to look at, you know, and the internet. But the internet wasn't really too popping, I would say, with a whole lot of information, unless you were on like a you know, some sort of group or something, you know, that you were talking to people on. But like,
forums or something like that. Yeah,
of some sort. Like there really wasn't, you know, like a whole lot of stuff for you to like look at and really like engulf yourself into, you know, besides High Times, you know. So like, and like being out here, like it was a very, very like small community. Everybody grew flower. Like, so like once dabs came around, it was everybody wanted a dab, you know. Like it's, and open blasting was a thing. Like you have people out here who have land and they can do whatever they want on their land. So they just go out there and start open blasting, blowing their sheds up left and right, So, I've seen my fair share of open blasting setups, and I've seen a fair share of really cool hydrocarbon setups too, that are phenomenal, So, like having that background, that's what we started with. We started with a hydrocarbon setup. We built one from open source. We started open blasting and going into that route, So, like, it was just, I think being exposed to dabs at an early age, I kind of strayed away from flower like right away. Besides the needing it to produce my extracts, like I really like the only part that I was interested for me has been like what flavors are we popping next, because I have my boy Andrew who like does a lot for me, and I have a couple other homies who do a lot for me on the growing side. So like that's a big part of I think keeping this team alive.
Yeah, no, I mean genetics are important, and I think like I can remember back to when I switched from smoking flower to dabbing, and it used to trip me out. I'd look at a jar and be like, I can't believe it. Like I'd put a dab on a dabber and be like, this is like fucking 2 joints, you know what I mean? And then you did away with the my biggest issue with flower is that it would always make everything smell, and you'd always smell like flower, and then the roach would smell like something else, and then the fucking flower smelled like something, and you were just this like giant stank bomb floating around, and that's highly detectable.
Exactly. That was what was so cool being young, taking dabs, is you would instantly, like, I could show up to work and not fucking reek, like
not reek. Yeah. You could have just taken a dab in the car, and then when you come back to your car, it doesn't smell like fucking weed. Like it was the greatest.
Looking weird at me, except for the fact that I'm, just blaze, So it is what it is. But like, when it comes to the like offending other people with the smell and shit, you don't have that. Like,
well, just the detection, like being more low key about it. It's like kids don't know nowadays. They have vape pens, they have all this shit. They don't know what it was like. Bro, just fucking reeking like weed all the time.
Well, I live 15 minutes, 20 minutes from Idaho. So I live near a zero tolerance state, So as far as like smoking flower goes, like we learned at a young age, like you better spray up. You take that shit out of your car. Like every kid in high school had gone out there and got a minor in possession with weed, because it was so easy for them. They'd pull them over. Oh, it smells like weed. They search the whole fucking car and search something, a pipe or something, So, and just that smell factor, like you're saying, like you're detected. Like it's so
every time.
Yeah, it's so, especially if you're smoking some loud flower. Like if you're smoking good flower, like that shit's sticking on you. If it's some good greasy, that, oh yeah, you're not getting away from that. It's on your breath, too, especially if you didn't drink or do anything with your breath. That shit's, you're done for.
Well, even like the in terms of trapping or in terms of moving weight, it was like when it switched from flour to oil, it was such a fucking easier job. Like
you go from a big amount to a small amount. Yeah,
the biggest issue with the oil was getting the money back, because that was like your problem. Because getting everything there, doing it was, dude, I'd have TSA take fucking jars out of my bag or just slabs and be like, "Oh, put these aside. What is this bottle of juice?" You're like, "Oh, my bad," and they fucking put the slabs. It was when that shit shifted.
You're like, "Is that orange juice? That's a no."
Oh, I remember them. I remember one time I had Diamond Baron, these jars of Diamond Baron, and the dude's like, "What's this?" And I'm like, "It's face scrub." And he's like, "Face scrub, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's face scrub." And he's like, "Okay." And he's like, "Well, the sheriff's going to be here in a minute." And I'm like, "All right." So I'm waiting and waiting, and the sheriff like is late or not coming, and the dude's finally just like, "You know what, bro? I know this isn't face scrub, but I don't have time to deal with this right now, so you could just take this." And I was like, "Dude, it's face scrub. You could try some if you want." Fucking just put it in my shit and bounce the fuck out. Like,
either that up, bud.
Yeah, I would have been tripped out if he started rubbing diamonds on his face, but hey,
well, they're not trained for that shit, And a lot of people, the average Joe thinks that those guys are Navy SEALs or something ready to take you out, and they don't know what they're looking for. They don't even know what $10,000 looks like, So, like the chances of you getting just fucked on them being dumb is right there, So that's what's also really scary with like TSA. They might not know what they are even looking at,
A lot of time they don't, man. There's ways to move things around that even those guys have a hard time detecting. It's like, but at the same time, their job is to look for bombs. It's not to look for the bomb. So
bombs, guns, and large amounts of money.
Yep. And the large amount of money is pretty funny because technically you can fly anywhere in the U.S. with any amount of money you actually want. You just can't leave the country with more than 10,000. But anyway, asset forfeiture aside, let's continue the conversation.
What they are, they get people because they don't know. That's the craziest part. Like, it's you gotta, knowledge is power.
Well, TSA now is pretty chill. It seems like anywhere you go, I fly everywhere the same way, in and out, and it's just I don't really feel like there's nothing that I can't talk my way out of when it comes to cannabis. It's like I don't have other, I don't have fucking DMT vape pens in my bag or any weird shit like that. And I'm not in Russia, but it seems pretty easy now to kind of get around. But so moving forward, it sounds like you're at this point, your guys are open blasting. You guys might be open blasting. And is that when you start Terptopia and you guys started with BHO?
So no, honestly, I started Terptopia a little later on after that, so we were more.
Did you guys have a brand?
No, so like that's the thing is where I was, it was so dead, man. Like there wasn't like the market out here is just smoking, like people just smoke, so like there was no branding. Like I was like I want to say 20 years old when I started hitting different events and started really seeing what could be done with cannabis. I went to Emerald. I went to the Dope Cup that they had out here way back in the day. I just random things, and I want to say like just seeing the branding in front of me, and like already being a hustler, like I kind of knew that's where it was headed. Like I just kind of like seeing it put in front of me so much and seeing how I would say professional it was. Like our medical market in Washington, we had a couple really cool brands, like that were, I would say, more inspirational for like starting the branding too would be like, Refine, Extracted. They had all their shatter and cool little jars with the strains on them, and they had all different look for each one, and you could pull up to like two dispos in my town, but like for Washington as a whole, like you could pull up to anywhere in Seattle and you could get Refine, and that was kind of the move. Like there really wasn't a whole lot of hash in dispos or the farmers markets per se, like like the, and if it wasn't anything desirable. Like
no,
I want to say the best and like first hash that I was really, really intrigued by, and it was dry sift, was Exotic Genetics Mike with his CNC out here. He was putting out a bunch of full melt out here way back, 10 plus years ago, and that was just kind of like the thing, like you'd have to go to dispos to kind of like get something that was worth desire, like our medical market was strong and they shit on it. When they went to rec, 502, they pretty much just shit they took a lot of people's soul away that were in it, so and being out where I'm at, in Eastern Washington, like a lot of these guys, like they already were kind of tired, so like getting kicked down one more step, it was even worse, so branding, I kind of saw that like at a young age, knowing that was the route, and I branded the first time 2017 at Chalice. I came up with Terptopia, and it was earlier on in that year, maybe even later 2016, and just kind of was running with it, and we were starting to fuck with hash, and I took some first presses down there, and I went to 2 tables and sold out. I'm like, I had black and white stickers, manila envelopes, like old school style, like easy peasy. It was, and I remember I was so dumb. I went to a booth and I sold it for, I want to say it was 50 or 60 a gram or whatever, and the kid looked at me, and he had just got done selling me hash for whatever it was, like $80 or $90 I had bought in like Trichrome Heavy and a couple other guys that I really like looked up to, and I had pulled out some shit, and I show them, and it was like a cherry pie cross, And I show him it, and he was like, "Oh, this is you?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll take all of it." And I was like, tight. So him and the table next to him, they just bought me out right there. The first 20, 30 minutes I was in the gate of Chalice, you know, so
sold out. That's so dope.
Yeah, and so like that was really where I was like, yo, this is it. Like the branding, like I'm onto something. Like, you know, like granted it was nothing. It was just a black and white sticker. We didn't even do anything like cool. But just having it like that and not showing up with a Tupperware or a pizza box or whatever the fuck was cool at the time or relevant at the time, you know, for slabs and shit like that, or rosin or hash, was just more professional, you know, like having that just more desired look to the consumer. Like it hit me in my brain right there that I was like, okay, you know. So to follow up with that, we started we were already producing hydrocarbons, and sauce was like really getting popular, you know. So our first, I would say, like cool stickered jarred product was like a hydrocarbon sauce diamond, you know, type shit, you know, because we didn't even have it down yet. We were just like, cool, you know, put it in the jars because that's what was popping, you know, that's what people were smoking, you know, especially like I said, out where we are, where there wasn't really a market, you know, like I you know, still just like a lot of people using Instagram at what's, you know, what's relevant in the scene, you know. So I was seeing what was around, so we started producing the sauce, you know, hydrocarbon sauce, and we packaged that. We actually had two grows come down at the same time, and we took it down. It was some Hell's Fire, some Keebler cookies. I don't want to say like GG4 or maybe something else. And that's what we took, and just seeing it like, you know, packaged in front of me with the strains and the colored stickers and everything, like that was just more fire, you know, like it was just more fire to keep going and doing more with it, you know. And as the market changed, like we don't do any hydrocarbons anymore, like, you know. So as the market changed, we just kind of stuck with learning and doing more with hash, you know. Like that's I was always kind of more passionate on smoking hash over the hydrocarbons. So me and my boy Andrew, we'd always have little, you know, tiffs and arguments about that shit, you know. So it's kind of funny because now fast forward, you know, he don't even want to smoke that shit, you know. So it's like, you know, he has the machine, he can go and blast whenever he wants, but you know, he's not, you know, trying to smoke slabs or diamonds or anything like that, you know. So it's kind of crazy how the market changes, and you kind of just got to go with it, you know. If you're smart, you go with it and adapt and see the future, you know. And I think I've done a decent job of trying to project what's going on in the future for our brand, you know. Like we're small. We're, you know, like a lot of people think we're this big ass brand, you know, and we're really not. It's a small team, and we work, and I kind of just see what's trending, and I try and go with whatever's in the market and keep pushing, you know.
For sure. Let's take it back a little bit. And when was the first time you saw or heard about rosin? Like, was it from Phil at Soil Grown? Was it the video that got put out, or?
Definitely, like seeing the Soil Grown, and like seeing the first like presses, like seeing people do like hair straighteners and shit, like that was like all so new. So like we rushed out and either made hash or went and bought whoever had hash around at the time and tried to emulate it like right away, you know. So like I don't know the exact year or anything, but I was doing it as these guys were, you know. I was piggybacking these guys, definitely, you know, like especially, and that's what Washington does, you know. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Like there, you can be creative out here for sure, but a lot of what we do relies on California and these bigger markets, because we have to kind of piggyback on what trends, you know. Like if you don't, you're kind of wasting time, you know. Like you can do your own thing for sure. Like you can do your own thing. But if you don't kind of do what's trending in these bigger markets, you're just going to get left behind, you know. So definitely seeing rosin and seeing Soil Grown and seeing a lot of the hashers around the country start producing rosin was very inspirational to get going, you know. Like we started with the hair straightener, moved into an arbor press, you know. So that was, you know, a little arbor ball bearing press with 2 plates that I ordered from mash.com, you know. So that, you know, it's to early onset of like pressing hash and like messing with hash. Like I said, we made hash when we were 15, 16 years old, making green pucks of bullshit, you know. And like I've always stuck on knowledge. So like seeing it change over time, I've been a big advocate in my circle to start producing clean hash and making better hash and stuff. So like at first, a lot of guys around us didn't see the significance of it, I would say, you know, like where we were going, why it was hash, you know, and stuff. But I would say a lot of those guys now, or, you know, they understand it, you know, it makes total sense to, I think, everybody, you know, like why you would want to grow for hash or produce hash in some way or some form, you know, because, you know, and hydrocarbons have their place. A good hydrocarbon is great. You know, I have no problem with it. It's just selling point of telling someone that it's made with water and heat and pressure is a lot better than trying to tell somebody this came out of a tank of gas, you know. You know, that we distilled and blah 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 blah, you know, like it's, you know, and you can make very clean hydrocarbons. I have no, like I said, there's not a problem with that. It's just when it comes down to giving your consumers and your friends a product, what do you want to give them, you know?
So you worked with a lot of cured material in the wash bin prior to working
early on. Oh yeah.
Once you made that switch to fresh frozen, did you ever look back? Did you ever try stuff out cured, or was it a complete switch?
And that's what's crazy. We've honestly, me and my boy Andy, we've been talking a lot about trying to get back. And like I talk about this with another homie of mine, like trying to like maybe start washing some cured flour, because I see people doing it, like Jay the Plant Speaker and some of these other guys that solely rely on washing cured flour, you know, doing great, and the stuff looks great. And I imagine, you know, a lot of the flavor and the effects that you're getting are completely different than fresh frozen. You know, like I haven't got to smoke a whole lot of cured hash of my knowledge, because, you know, people probably aren't honest with what they're putting on the label. But for the most part, like I would say we haven't in years messed with any cured. Like I started messing with fresh frozen hydrocarbon, and we never even looked back on that. Like I'd hardly even touch a trim run. Like we, you know, like it just didn't make sense. Like it for outcome of producing quality and what you want to smoke, sell, etc. Like you're just gonna have shit that sits around with running an inferior product, you know. So for the most part, we've always stuck fresh frozen. Like we have freezers full for years. It's just been a thing, you know. That's what we do, you know. So I would say I want to get back to washing cured material. It's just, it's hard, man. Like having a dry room, doing it the correct way. I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, to have a good cured flour is one thing, but to have, you know, what I think some of these people are curing and washing is you know, is bullshit, you know. But yeah, I've seen some people wash some really nice flour that's cured, and I'm like, God damn, you know, like straight out of the turkey bag, they start washing it, you know. So it's just, I think for us, I want to get back to it. It's just, like I said, we don't have a dry room at the moment for something like that to go and pull multiple rooms and really do it, you know, like we would want to. So I haven't been able to do it like that again.
Word. Where do you sit with the melt versus rosin debate? Do you dip on one side more than the other, or are you an omnivore?
So me personally, I would say I understand the debate, the 100% of why you would want one over the other, why you would say one or the other. For me and for our brand, I would say we produce mainly rosin for what the market reflects. You know, if we could, and not just that, let me backtrack a little bit. A lot of strains do not produce full melt, and there's so many people out here that are packaging shit that isn't a full melt, you know, like it's just because it's 90 120U first wash, you know, like as soon as that shit hits the nail, it tells it, you know, it's the judge, you know, it tells you, you know. So I think, and then you see it in rosin, you see these people saying 90 120U full melt first press, you know, they could put whatever they want on the thing, but a lot of strains do not produce a full melt trichrome. They do not. Like at the end of the day, you get done. Some things do not produce that melt. Like they do not have a good melt. Like you can go through any of the bags. Like you can go 70, 90, 120. different cultivars. You can go to, whatever. Like some of these strains do not produce it, So I think for us, we produce a lot of rosin based off of the strains that I've been able to go and wash, because I've seen great hash, and I do not want to put out hash that isn't Aquafina in the nail. I want that, you're so happy, when you're done. And I actually have some full melt that I washed a while ago that we're really proud of that we've been smoking on. I think maybe we brought some to Legends. It's the Mo cookies, and like something like that. Like that was the last time I released full melt, besides GMO that I know tried and true is going to melt great and get you high every single time, but a lot of these strains I would say are like on the stockier side, or they're just not it. I wouldn't want to smoke them. Like, yes, they melt great, or they just don't taste that good, So, and I think that's the problem with a lot of hash on the market right now is it either doesn't have the legs to keep you high or there's no flavor, So
I think that's a really good point. I think that there's a lot of stuff out there right now that's lacking one or the other. Like, I mean, at what point are we putting too much weight into the melt factor and not considering the effect as well? I think that that's something that needs to be understood. It's like, well, okay, is the end all be all a clean nail? And so can I achieve that? And if when that is achieved, is that going to be the ultimate experience, or does the ultimate experience not align with the ultimate cleanliness?
Exactly. And if you see too, another thing that I have like a weird problem with a lot of the melt on the I would say the market that you see is you see people post it and it looks great, but the table stability isn't there. So there's moisture still in that hash, so like that's a big thing. Like for us, like I'm not going to produce melt that's out there that is going to cake up in a day because we didn't dry it properly, like, and I see a lot of that. Like there's a lot of improperly dried full melt or, hash at that point. I don't even want to call it full melt on the market that people think is full melt because it smears out on the parchment form, like and then day two that you look at it and it's fucking crumbly. Like that's not right. That's not going to happen from a properly dried hash, So I think that's another big thing for the melt versus rosin thing. Like for me, like I love full melt hash. Like if we're producing good hash, like I definitely keep some in my freezer. I smoke it. I try and package it for people, that want it, but for the most part, a lot of what we produce is rosin because of what the market reflects,
What are your thoughts on air dried resin versus freeze dried resin?
We are cold as fuck where we are, bro. So like in the winter to fall, which is I would say 9 months out of the year, we're air dry central, so we are going to get into that this year. That was a big goal for our brand, is to start air drying and start microplaning and start messing around with that, because I personally enjoy smoking air dried full melt a little bit more than freeze dried full melt. I would say I just the heads melt a little nicer. It's just a different feel, different texture, and I would say that then again, some strains are not gonna allow you to air dry them. They're not gonna allow you to sit there and play with them like that. So I think the ability to have the freeze dryer right there for R&D on some strains, because we get a lot of new stuff. Like I have a small team, but everybody pops shit. Like we're always popping stuff. So the last thing that I want to do is gear up and ruin someone's crop because I wanted to air dry it all, and have grease and bullshit everywhere, like that's the last thing that I want to do. So having a freeze dryer, just the easiness right there, to be able to produce runs for these guys is nice. That's where we're at, I would say, for it, but as far as like smaller runs go in the future, we're going to do a lot of air drying, microplaning runs.
So yeah, so in a perfect world, you would prefer air dried resin over freeze dried resin. Is that a fair statement? For the most part, like do you feel that properly air dried resin overall is a more quality offering?
It's a hard one, you know. Like
I know I'm trying to paint you into a corner.
I see it, bro. I see it. It's a hard one, you know. I would say, for me personally, if I'm gonna smoke full melt, from my experiences, I'm not talking about anybody else's experiences. My experiences, the best melt that I've seen has been air dried. Some of the best flavored full melt I would say has been freeze dried. You know, like as far as like, wow, that was, you know, just you're eating it. You know, like it was freeze dried full melt. So I would say if I'm looking for the melt content, you know, like wow, that was great. That was easy to dab. I'll dab more of it, smooth. You know, all that air dried 100%. But as far as, you know, like I said, like that. Some flavors, man, like I've had freeze dried hash like full melt that just I have not gotten air dried, you know. And I think that's mainly based off the strains people are air drying, you know, because you're not going to microplane all some of these strains. I'm telling you right now, you're not going to have fun, you know, like especially in your environment, you know, like it's all environmental based, I would say, you know, like some people, like I see a guy on Instagram, his name's like Minnesota Dabs. He does like a plum cross and shit like that. Like those guys, like it's cold out there, like, you know, like it's cold all the time. So doing, you know, getting to play with like shit like that, he's probably a little bit more able to air dry and play like that, you know. So like that's why I even brought it up, is like we have 9 months of cold weather, so I just want to do it as like a more hobbyist thing, you know, something to do like that's fun for us, you know, like, you know, like hash has got to be fun, cannabis has got to be fun at the end of the day. That's why we like to produce flavor. That's why we're always popping different flavors, because if you were to just grow one thing, you're gonna be so bored, man. Like, and do one thing, you're gonna be bored. Like that's why for a while we did hydrocarbon and hash, because it was fun. Like it was fun to have a representation of your homie's favorite cultivar in hash, rosin, and diamonds. You know, that was really cool to give people, you know, like that was a cool experience, you know. So like for us, it's trying to have fun and be smart and still produce cool shit, you know.
You mentioned microplaning a couple times. Do you also sieve, or do you prefer microplaning?
I like, so some of the strains you can definitely get away with wet sieving or cold sieving, you know, but I would, you know, as far as like what we've done, I've microplaned a lot more than wet sieved and shit like that, just based off of the environment that we have set up, you know. And our room now, I would say, is going to be great for wet sieving and doing all that, you know. So like I'm really excited to do more air drying this year, and just getting back to different styles of hashing, you know, because we've been so stuck with just using the harvest right that like we haven't even played in a while, you know. Like I feel like that's a big part of hashing sometimes, is playing.
Yeah. What do you guys typically run your shelf temperatures at?
50 degrees, 40 to 50 degrees.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guys like playing with lowering that shelf temperature and finding that sweet spot between, you know, what's viable commercially and what makes sense.
And that's the thing, it's all about your size of your runs, you know. Most of the time, we try to fill our trays, so like 40 to 50 degrees gets us a dried product in a reasonable time, you know, that's not taking, you know. So we've rocked it colder. We've gotten down to the 10s, 20s. Some strains I would say, like I want to eventually, you know, like I said, we're small, man. If I had more freeze dryers, more time, obviously, I would set up each one at its own parameters for each run, you know, like honestly, because some of these strains we've got to do a few times now, so it's not just plug and play as far as, you know, we're just gonna fill everything. We do sometimes, but like sometimes, you know, like the Karate Kid we just ran, that shit's so greasy, you want to rock it a little lower, like, you know, that especially being hotter outside where we're at too, our room's struggling a little bit to get as cold as it normally does in the winter, you know, because we're in a high desert. It's like a high desert wasteland, they call it, or some bullshit. So we're getting up to that mid 90 degrees. So, you know, to keep the cold room cold is an extra step, you know, like to keep everything going, you know. So I would say like some of these strains, like totally, like rocking lower shelf temps and playing with your dry times is everything. And that's what I was talking about with producing full melt that has moisture in it. There's a lot of that out there right now because some of these guys are staying so low in their temperatures, and then they're pulling them out. And yes, you can, sieve through, but there's clearly moisture. You can, like I do it, we do it all the time where you get done and you can see it, there's moisture still present in the hash, so you got to run another batch real quick and dry it longer, and that's, no one wants to do that. So like for us, a lot of the parameters have been that 40-50 degrees, on the freeze dryer.
100%. Are you seeing popularity in fresh press the same way that where it's being showcased in the California market, in your market?
So that's what's crazy is like where I'm at is slow, so I don't reflect my market too hard like Eastern Washington. Like I more or less, this is where we reside and I work off of the other markets, so like I said, I try and do things that reflect what's going on in those markets and trying there. Like I honestly just packaged the other day some fresh press because I've been seeing what you just said, it's getting, people are wanting to do that more. They want fresh press, they want to cure it themselves, or they want ability just to smoke these strains in fresh press. And that's what I was talking about, having the different forms. Like that's cool, like having a cold cure, having a fresh press of all these strains. When you have the same strain in front of you, it showcases that strain to its fullest. So for us, like having to produce fresh press is like, I would say still another like run dependent thing. Like some things you press, you can instantly see that they want to nucleate and butter out. Like I wouldn't want to give that to somebody in a jar as a fresh press, so I obviously cold cure those, So for us, we're just gonna keep doing what makes sense, like for the fresh press thing, like I'm only gonna produce fresh press that's stable, nice, really nice fresh press, like a lot, like I said, some of them strains you can instantly see it. That THCA is so active, it's right there, it's sugary, like giving that somebody as a fresh press, just knowing it's going to change right away, it's just so I think we're going to see a lot of that again. We're going to see a lot of that dry biscuit rosin on the market, and people will want cold cure again, so because people, they are abusive with their hash. They get in the car with 5 fucking jars and they forget about it, and then they're at a homie's house and they get back out, and next thing you know, it's not fresh press anymore, like
no.
Like that's the shittiest thing about, I would say, a lot of fresh press, depending on the strain, is its shelf life of being a stable fresh press, so I think the market's always in need of different I would say textures or whatever it is, different substances. Like they're always going to be into something new, and especially right now with hash being so, like, people are just circling back to what's old, so like there's nothing new, so they're like, cool, let's get back to what we know, fresh press, so it's kind of funny how it works, but I feel like that's kind of what any market does, any industry does, when there's nothing new, they circle back to what's old.
Yeah, they bring it back, bring back some nostalgic shit, and people like it. It's cycles, everything's in cycles, and I think it's going to continue to be that way as you see different equipment come on board and things can be advanced in different ways, and you think things will progress always, but at the same time, I think that nevertheless, you're always going to, it's always like regional too, right? Like, that there's certain groups of people that have a shitload of popularity in their region, and they may like one thing and everyone just sort of starts following in that direction too. So it's like, or someone's creating a lot of hype around it. I mean, that's what I love about humans.
Who's gassing what up exactly? Like, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, someone, because like interestingly enough, a very popular person may get onto something and make it more popular. It's like, Burner is dabbing now, so you see Burner starting to expose Darby and other glass blowers to his market, his fans and stuff, and that opens doors, and now that Burner's dabbing, I think you may see more people that weren't, because people want to be in line with what the people that they look up to are doing too. So
very fatty. Some of the cannabis market is. It's very trendy and fatty. And that's what I was saying is like staying on top of that has been a big part for us. Is trying to stay on those little weird trends and fads, because if you don't at least try it, you don't know what's going to stick around. You really don't. You like so it's weird as it is. Like we're seeing a lot of strains circle back around that I feel like you're saying weren't popular in some markets, and now people are growing them out, and now they're popular in that circle, or and these people are gassing these certain strains up that people have already ran through in other markets. So it's so weird how some of these things get circled back around to, because we're kind of twiddling our thumbs waiting on what's new. It's like you're saying, as far as equipment or whatever, like we're all just kind of waiting, like whether you're creating or you're waiting, you're doing one of the two.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I definitely think it's cyclical. I think you're seeing a resurgence of narrow leaf equatorials and guys saying, oh, well, we're bringing back the piff and we're working it into our lines, or we're bringing back the Cuban black haze. You're seeing a lot of that these days.
A lot of haze.
I wanted to ask about resin mixing. We're seeing it become like really prevalent. A number of winners, including Legends and Ego Clash. The most recent Legends and Ego Clash were blends. Is this something that you're actively participating in with Terptopia, or what are your thoughts on it?
Right next to me, they have a big drive Karate Kid truck guava that is a mix wash. We do tons of mix washes. For us, the mix washing provides an ability to, one, produce a different flavor, and two, not still have that. If you're sick and tired of GMO, you sure as shit have some of it growing, so you still want to mix wash it. You want to do something else with it, so to be able to provide that ability to like still produce something that is desirable, is nice with the mix wash. And
yeah.
I think like what it comes down to, I was told something a long time ago by a guy that was from the wine industry, and he compared cannabis to wine and where we were headed. And like, you don't see, some of these really, really beautiful wines being crafted from one kind of grape.
No.
It's so like that's really what it comes down to. And if we were stuck smoking one kind of strain, because we want to be whatever, I don't even know what the word would be, just whatever it is, you just want to smoke that strain, and not mix. Because I've been seeing a lot of like people dissing it, like mix washing, they're like saying it's inferior, blah, blah, blah. And that makes it's the most asinine thing to me to like hear that, because I'm like, that makes no sense. I'm like, it's the same shit that we grew out, the same everything. There's nothing different about it. We just mixed it because we wanted to create something new.
Well, technically it's compounding. I mean, that's what you're doing, is taking two separates, putting them together, and then creating a third brand new offering, like something that's unique of each of them. And what I think is interesting is you're seeing guys go from, just two things being compounded to like a 4 strains being compounded, 3 strains being compounded at different amounts too, but if you think about it, it's like being a chef, like you guys have ingredients that happen to all be of the same type, but you can create different things from it. So
I think a lot of people don't realize that not all these strains dump. Some of them have great flavor though. So what's going on in the scene that consumers don't understand is we're using some of these strains as a carrier strain for the terps that they provide. So some of these strains will provide the best terps, like, and mixed with something else, it might create a little bit different of a terp, but it's so desired that you're not going to be able to ever taste it. You're like, unless we do mix wash it, you're not going to be able to get the little fucking 2 ounces that are produced if we don't mix wash it with something else, because it gets ran off, having some of these strains as a carrier strain is awesome. I talked to Jay, Professor Sift, when I was actually at your house about this, a lot about it, I thought it was something that a lot of guys weren't really doing. Like he's telling me he's keeping 1 to 2%ers, and like for us, like I thought that was a no-no, you know, like I thought I was supposed to find, you know, something that was still, you know, maybe of that gene mock-up, but like something that produced a better yield, you know. But he's telling me like, yo, flat out, like we've ran, you know, whatever 50 different phenos or different seeds or whatever they've done, and it's still the same bang out. It's going to be 1 to 2%, but we got to have that flavor, you know.
Yeah,
so
they want that profile.
Yeah, so like they got to, you know. So it made a lot of sense, you know, like learning that from him, you know, like to be like, cool, like we can go ahead and now like kind of keep some of these ones that we were kind of like, let's not keep it just because we like to smoke it, because there's a lot, every hasher has shit that we're not producing out there because it didn't dump, you know, like we'll end up smoking it, give it to a friend or whatever it may be. But a lot of them are flat out just they don't provide a yield, and there's the flavor is desirable. So like being able to produce that with a strain that does provide a yield is everything, you know. So I think like you're saying, as people get better at it and they add maybe 5, 6, you know, or whatever it is, or the two perfect fucking, you know, strains that blend together, great strains, you know, I think that's where it's going to become really cool. There's definitely mixed washers you don't want to smoke, like you know, that's hash period. There's hash everywhere you don't want to smoke. And that's because we are all picky in our own ways, you know. Like there's hash that I don't like to smoke that we produce because that's not my profile, you know. Like, but that doesn't mean it's bad hash, you know. So I think a lot of people get so quick to jump on the internet and call something bad without really like explaining themselves, and then people just run with the shit, you know. Like, so like the mixed wash being bad or inferior, I think that's just like so blown out of proportion. Like people don't understand that, you know.
Yeah, what those people don't know is that no one cares what they think anyway.
Yeah.
Are you a proponent of mixing the material in the wash bin for any specific reason, or in an ideal world would you have those two separate varietals washed separately and then the rosins mixed together?
So us personally, we just mix the flour in the wash bin. That's how we do it. I have also used like our automated we have like, you know, 6 cubic foot washers that we'll run, and we've done those where they're separate, you know, each one's its own separate. But I really don't see a difference. Like you don't see much of a difference, I feel like, you know, like as far as what you're gonna get final outcome if you're keeping it separate or not, you know. I would say it would take a lot of R&D in testing it for people, for somebody to say there was a difference, you know. Me personally, I haven't seen a difference, you know. As far as flavor goes, they come out the same. You know, we stopped using a lot of our automated washers just because they're nasty. It's cleaning them and doing all that shit is fucking gross, man. Like, so we just stick to doing open washing. We hand wash everything for now until I can afford one of these nice stainless ones that you can keep really clean. You know, I just not really into the plastic components anymore. Like besides, we use fucking Kenny Brutes and shit, but we, you know, as far as like having a bunch of plastic tubing and plastic components of these automated washers that are the old school style ones, like it just got kind of gross, you know. Like you can clean as much as you want, but there's so many nooks and crannies in those things. Like
have you taken a look at any of the newer equipment, the Axis, the Icon, the Hashtag, or things like that?
Those are awesome. Like, you know, eventually we definitely want to get into something like, you know, a nice stainless setup like that. But dude, like just looking at what you're producing and the pricing and everything like that, like it's a big step up for what we produce as far as our market goes and stuff, you know, like if that makes sense. Like a lot of people don't realize you step up into a different class, I would say, and you make less, more stress, you know. So staying in a certain ballpark of where we're at, you know, like I get to have fun, I don't stress too hard, you know. I've bit off more than I can chew. I've done that, you know. So it's one of those things, like to feed a monster like an osprey or one of those, you better believe you better have the market, and you better have the material to feed those things, because there's a lot of dumb buying those right now. Like, it's not that we don't have the money to go and buy something like that. I just am smarter than that. Like, I'm not gonna go buy some $20,000, $30,000 piece of equipment and try and feed this beast and have hash for days filling up the freezers. Like, we know what we produce, you know, and we know what we can get done in work weeks, you know. So it is what it is, you know.
Well, I wish more people thought that way, because what they don't understand is when you do that, it's a form of greed, because you put more product on the market and you ultimately have to lower your price, which is a race to the bottom. And that's, you know, like bringing it back to the conversation we were just previously having about, you know, what's the future of this? And you were talking about like you're either waiting or you're, you know, I think what the future of this is the direction of wine. And it is going to be blends, and they're going to be blends of different percentages and different, you know, cultivars being involved. And that's because, like, the point that Jay makes is, if you don't want to throw away a 1.2 or even a 0.8, because if that 0.8 is just the right ingredient that makes your other two point mix perfect, and that's where people should be spending their time. Because if you don't go get the Osprey and you do mess around and tinker and build these things, you can create a really unique menu. And you can use the same ingredients, but create a crazy menu. And think of it as like food trucks, where, you know, or like the chef shows where they have all the same ingredients, and then you got to go make a different meal. And that's where I think like the future of this whole thing is. If you want to get everyone's fucking attention, you create unique things that other people have never had before by taking what's out in front of everybody and putting them together in a different way. And that's like,
true.
I want to see more of that. And I want to see less of the, dude, let's fucking, you know, instead of buying some Gucci belts this month, let's go fucking buy this Osprey, and then let's produce so much fucking hash that then we have to start shipping here and start doing that. You get vulnerable, and you're getting messy, and you fuck up the whole market for everybody. And then you end up probably, you know, not being free. So it's not smart.
Exactly. Well, and for us, dude, like, it kind of results back to hydrocarbons. Like, my boy Andy ran our fucking closed loop for a while, and it was boring. You know, like, to watch that, like, that is boring. That is a soulless, boring position. Like, you're doing nothing.
This.
Yeah, so like that's all these automations are. You're doing nothing. Yes, you're prepping and doing stuff in behind the scenes in the background, while you can always be doing something, but you're doing nothing, you know. So like for a work day, like, to be able to hand wash, man, like, fuck. Like, yes, people, I see people bitching about their backs and shit, but like, we just get shit done, dude. Like we just go and we bang shit out, we just get it done. Like, that's what work is. That's, you know, what we're meant to do is work, you know. So like, you know, as far as like hand washing goes, like I feel like it makes a way happier, funner time for more. And they're like, we're bullshitting, fun washing, you know, like, if we're,
well, then you get some you're like, oh, you know, like your shoulders are getting jacked. Like,
you start looking, like, we're not like looking at a machine, bro. Like that shit is boring. Like, watching the machine, fucking, it's like, okay, what? Like, you know, the thing's just spinning. Like,
well, there's a social component to making the hash, and there's a social component to, like,
a little bit of love, bro,
fucking around and having fun, and whatever music's on the radio or something too, you know. So
no, I feel like the soullessness of automation is there, man. Like, to be able to just push buttons, start, and provide like the Hashatron setups and some of these big wild machines that, you know, what's the Whitewater hash or whatever the other big one, I can't remember the other big
Whistler
one.
Tech.
Yeah, there you go. That, like, those, they're cool, don't get me wrong, those are fucking cool. I think the technology is cool. I think all of it's really cool. I just, for what I am as a connoisseur and a consumer and a hasher, I'd rather have fun with this shit, man. I got one life. I'm trying to have fun. I'm not trying to watch a machine do all the work. Like, I'd rather have some fun with it, see what each strain provides for us, so I can give feedback to these guys the right way. Like, that's 90% of the battle. If you don't know how these strains work and what they're doing and shit, like, you're not going to help these guys at all. Like, you know, you know, you tell some of these guys the percentage sway and they almost kind of laugh at you, but that's their fault.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like, when you have a room that sways 1%, it's not my fault. That's the guy who's growing it, you know? So like, I get to know all that, you know, based off of playing with a lot of this. Yes, you can with the big automated setup too, but it's more hands-on like this, you know, hand washing, playing with it, way more hands-on. Like we see everything to a T, you know?
Yeah.
So with that being said, I mean, would you say that there is a ceiling to the quality that can be produced out of a commercial solventless machine versus someone hand paddling a wash?
I wouldn't know if there's a ceiling per se, because there's always going to be new machines and technology made, you know? So like tomorrow or right now, bro, like there could be a guy that just shits on whatever I tell you, you know, and like has a machine like, yo, look at this, you know? And it's, I couldn't say, you know, like I would say right now, hand washing is beating out a commercial setup 100%, you know, or it's just, you're having, it's like a watchmaker, you know? If you have one guy working on the watch the whole time and it's not getting passed off to a machine or 20 other hands, like that watch is probably going to come out okay, you know? Like it's just different, you know? Like that automated, like having someone else do the work for you, like there's some blame to be there, you know? Like if something else happens, like who else is there to blame, you know? Like so for us, like I feel like that's a big part of it too, like being in charge of what's going on and knowing like if something doesn't go as planned, it's your fault. You know, like it's not, I don't get to yell at this $40,000 washer machine's fault, you know, like
no. And I think if you're a maker, what you need to ask yourself is what's the demand for your product? If you have a huge demand for your product, you're going to need to automate and possibly, you know, add automation, but then also be doing smaller batches. Like I know we're going to get to a point where some of these bigger companies that are running these bigger machines, they could literally start to do hand wash in addition and sell that as another line.
Oh yeah,
you know, because
that's happening, you know, because they have to. There's so much material that they've bit off. Like I was saying, you get to that next class, and you got to do everything you can do because you have so much material. It's everything you can do to produce whatever you can do, you know. So every line counts, you know. So you're 100%, you know. Like when they get to that point, they're gonna have to start dropping new lines, you know, their boutique hand wash lines and these other random lines that sell fresh press lines, whatever it is, because they have so much material, and it's become, you know, unless you're like I would say a licensed company, like that's just fucking ridiculous. Like that's overkill. If you're getting to the point where you're having multiple ospreys running and all that shit, like that's, you know, those guys that are doing that are selling their hash for $25 a gram, you know, less, $10-15 a gram wholesale, you know, if you're, you know, whatever market you're in, you know, Washington's terrible. Like I want to say 502 is anywhere between 10 to 25, 30 if you're a really good brand, you know. You know, so like it's you know, and like I think,
is that retail or wholesale?
That's wholesale. So like retail, the companies and the stores get, you know, anywhere from like, if it's a good company, 60 to 80, I would say, you know. Like then you got Oregon's market's a little different, you know. Oregon has a shit ton of hash that's in their market, so those guys are racing to the bottom right now, you know. So Washington will do it too. Washington loves to race to the bottom. They're the 502. They it's sad as it is, like these guys don't know how to coexist to save their lives in this market. So they will eventually, one of them will start selling it for cheaper, vice versa, you know. So they'll start, you know. We have big like Fat Panda and shit that they're ready to race to the bottom, you know. That's what he's hoping for.
That's their model.
Yeah, they're like, let's race, boy.
They're like, we could lose money for 10 years and we'll still fucking be here. Like,
yeah, we got.
But that's, you know, that's a strategy to enter a market where, you know, I think like when you're talking about this question of like larger equipment or smaller, or, you know, it really comes down to like, what is the demand for your product? Is it there? And are people really need it? So you have to go to large. But, you know, what I've seen is the larger setups, some of the bigger ones. And I feel like it depends on the strain. It depends on everything. It's like, I've had some really good hash, you know, that comes from large scale machines. And I've had really good hash from, you know, obviously from smaller, but if I had to answer, I would agree with you and say that the the open wash is going to kick the shit out of the other stuff. So
it's just, yeah, I feel like just the neglectfulness of being able to walk away from machine is there, and like having that, like I said, that ability to say like it wasn't my fault is there too, with like the machine, like Jameson asked, he like where are these machines better than hand washing? Like it's so hard to say, because what machine is better than the other one? Like that all comes down to R&D testing, and all these machines do different parameters. It's all different, so I feel like it all comes back to what you're saying. Like if you have a market for it, gear up, go for it, but a lot of people are doing this and they don't realize what market they're gearing up for. If you're ready to be at the bottom and race right there, go ahead. Like it's a short little circle down there, because people with real money like that they'll sink you, so like, yeah, I think that the more you, like, some of these guys focus on being boutique brands and wanting to hold that space in the market, the better off they are, like, and that's true. Where we're focused at is like, I could care less about being the biggest, baddest brand. Like I just want to be relevant in 10 years. I still want to be a brand in 10 years. Like I don't want to fall out like half of these other fucking brands are, and you see that all the time because people want to start thinking they're Budweiser and compete, and it's not there. You can't do that.
It's not a fun place, I mean, the question that needs to be asked is, does it make hash better? Does this process make hash better? Does automating larger make hash better? Does it make a better product? Because that's what everyone should be striving to do. But you know how it is. Some guys aren't striving to make a better product. They're striving to make more fucking money. Yeah. And that's all that matters, so.
Bro, like, and that's the thing. I've been broke my whole life. I'm comfortable being broke. I don't, that's like, like I definitely do this to make money, but it's been a passion. It's been a passion to get go. Okay. I've been trying.
Take your dab, bro.
Yeah, take your dab.
We can struggle, man.
While you get your shred there. He's like reheating the poor fucking
Yeah, dab. I know, the poor guy. I've hit like 18 dabs and he's trying to get one in.
See, this is why we need commercials, because then
I'm just trying
to. If we had ad reads, then like the guests could take dabs.
That's the best reason I've heard for a sponsor yet.
Well, if we had ad reads, then they could dab, and we could be like, you know what? Now and we wouldn't even call them ad reads. We could just call them like
smoke breaks.
A dab break for the guest, and then during the dab break for the guest, we just do a read. So that'd be cool.
I think we got to do that for these guys.
If there's any sponsors out there that are interested, hit us up. And I mean, obviously, it has to be, I think, something that we believe in. That wouldn't be a conflict of interest for the guests either. So, yeah. But yeah, definitely.
You're gonna get all the Bible people hitting you up.
Yeah, I think we should sell Bibles. That'd be a fucking great idea.
I'm down.
I want ZipRecruiter to sponsor, to be on one of our ad reads. That'd be awesome. That'd be fucking great. I don't see it happening anytime soon. But I mean, if you think about it, there are enough brands and businesses in the industry, not just saying our podcast, but like other, any podcast. And I'd love to start seeing that more. That's kind of cool. That would show like a maturity of the cannabis podcasting space, is that you had that. And there's some of them that I see that are trying to be these like very organized ones, but they're not, either they're not really getting the best guests or other things. But
I feel like that's a big part of like your guests, what you're talking about, what's rolling, like how do you keep the show going? Like podcasts are hard, like me personally, I listen to more music than podcasts. My boy Andy, he loves podcasts, so like that's his shit. That's every time we get in the car, he has a podcast on. So it's, I think podcasts are for certain people and they're for, for other markets, and I think the better you strive to make a better one, and have cool elements in your podcast, I think you're going to do great. Like I think this is a good, it's a different one that's out there, like this is, I think we're more to the, like the nitty grittiness, it's
like a real conversation too.
Yeah. That's what, it's been cool to just chop it up. That's what I'm saying. Like just hanging out more or less than just like being forced to answer shit I don't really care for.
Or to follow a format, like a specific format or something. And that's what, like, I think that was the birth of podcasts, because people didn't want to go and spend a tiny little window on a talk show or something or whatever, and it's all cleaned up and it's presented, and it's like, no, you want people to sit there and struggle and have to reheat their dab and fucking, it's like you need that kind of shit. So, but bringing it back to what we said before, I think we were talking about sponsorship, and like, yeah, if anyone wants to sponsor, that'd be awesome, that'd be great. But I think we were discussing. We just lost our chain. Like we started just randomly talking about different shit.
Yeah,
but I can bring it back. So, so the question that I have for you is, as somebody who's looked at a lot of different material, have you been able to make any correlation between salt grown and organically grown resin?
So this is a big one, I would say right now. I would say between salt grown and organically grown resin, no, but I would say between indoor and outdoor resin, yes. 100%.
Yeah.
Whether it's full term, hoop house or not, like I definitely can see that in the resin. I would say flavor, yes, you're going to see a difference in flavor with some of these different inputs that people are using. And I would say is for us that I've seen K&F gardens and stuff produce flavors that were less, there's like, fishy flavors and shit like that from their beds. There's some things running different styles, people don't realize that with a K&F garden, you're not flushing, so like with shit like that, like a lot of people don't realize that you're just hanging out with a lot of those inputs. So if you do too much of one thing, it may come back into your result.
Like that balance. Yeah, the balance has to be you have to do it correctly and do it the right way otherwise.
So, and like there's so much that we've seen, that can affect the resin, or as far as like flavor or color, etc. So I would say, like salt versus organic inputs. I have, like, me personally, I wouldn't be able to look at something and tell you like right off the rip, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I could tell you that this bottle notes definitely how pumped it was, but like as far as smell,
PGR.
Yeah, shit like that. But like, you're not like it's going to be pretty, like, I would, we'd have to Pepsi challenge that for some people, because I think people are talking out their ass.
I think the outdoor, the point about outdoor, what people don't realize is that when you're doing separation like this, it's so detailed that you can tell. Yeah. I mean, they don't realize that the environment beats up resin and it degrades it, so it's environmental, shit happens. That's why indoor runs so beautiful sometimes, because you're like, oh, this shit fucking lives at the spa compared to the outdoor that's in the elements. So.
And some strains do, for us that we've seen, like, we don't do anything outdoors. In the past, we've done some depths and stuff because we've just played and had some fun, but for the most part, you can't. It's too fucking cold, bro. Like, we don't have weather. Like, you're just gonna, and there's no one doing it, so you're just sticking out like a fucking idiot, like have a bunch of plants outside, like there's people who do it, but it's real small, so for us to run a lot of that kind of material, like we saw, like right off the rip, like some strains do a lot better outside than they do inside as far as yield goes. Like we had, like Skittles, for instance, like the pheno that we had was dog shit inside. You grow that bitch in a hoop or outside or anything like that, did amazing. It yielded great, like everything, So I think there's a fine balance of what you need to grow and what you're doing between both of those, because a lot of these strains are bred outside. They're not bred inside. They're not, So the numbers and testing that are coming back are all from outside grows. It's not from an indoor grow. So for people like me who bring these seeds that we buy from a lot of these producers, breeders, the numbers don't add up. They're not the same. The numbers for what they're producing resin or yield is not the same outside to inside. So it doesn't even, like, you want to get back to salt and organic, like that. That's a whole nother thing. Like, if you're gonna sit there and hit something with a bunch of bottled nits, you can pump something up hella big. So it's just. I think that, like, for us, if for me personally, looking at material, like I wouldn't be able to tell you right off the rip if it was, unless it was blatantly obvious, like, salt or organic. No, like I think a lot of people are just so caught in their ways of wanting to be right and wrong. They're like, "Oh, organic's the right way," or So it's hard to say. I would say as long as you are flushing your inputs, properly and getting proper runoff and shit like that, like a lot of that stuff doesn't matter.
And if you don't know, the nail will tell you. Just
final
take a fucking dab of it, man.
Right there, the nail in your lungs.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's kind of the final judge every time. Is like if you change something or tweak something, and you're trying to cut corners, so you have to do X. It's okay when you're done, just try that shit, man. You should be trying every product you put out anyway.
And for like getting back to the salt and the organic, like for like my circle, I would say it's mainly salt inputs. Like we have a lot of mills. There's an Athena garden. We do have a couple, like I said, homies that do run organic inputs and stuff like that. So it's so hard to say, like, depending on what crop I'm running or what strain I'm running. Like, I personally, like, the only thing I would be able to tell you is yield between, the gardens, and like that's usually depending on how good they're maintaining their garden and a number of other things, how big their garden is and shit like that, So like and it could be just a different genotype inside the phenotype, so like there's a lot that goes into yield, I would say. But like looking at quality salt versus organic, that's hard.
Before we jump into what you have going on in your gardens that you're working with, what are 3 of the most standout varieties from other people in the last year, say, that you've been able to experience in rosin or milk?
Ooh. The last year or so, I would say one of them right off the bat would be Burko's entry to Legends. He showed up last second. That shit was amazing. It was like, well, you know what it was, Addison?
Straw Nana.
Was it Straw Nana?
Straw Nana. Yeah.
I thought he said it was Peach Smoothie or something stupid like that.
No, it was Straw Nana. Was his his entry was Straw Nana. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So So that was like Burko's entry was amazing. That shit was fire.
That shit was fire.
Yeah.
The smoothie was who the fuck was that? Someone else. He might have had that with him, like brought some with him or something, or that. I can't.
I could have sworn because it didn't taste like normal Straw Nana.
No, it was Straw Nana.
What?
I remember he told me.
That's why.
I have it on the list. Yeah.
Yeah, because I just remember it was unlabeled. He didn't have a label or nothing on it. He just showed up with it. I was like, damn.
Oh, he had no label. He had no labels. He was like, he dropped his entry off. Like he's like, "What's up, bro?" Like he's so funny. Like he's such a, he's up in the hills, man. He's doing so much shit. So.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I smoked, man, what was it? Something that Dr. Vert had that was like a sour of some sort that was really fucking good. Tried recently at DFO that I really, really liked. I smoked some of the shit out of Maine, those Helios guys. All of their flavors that I've tried, all been bangers. Guava something, Cushman's, there's everything that I've tried. Full melt, their raws and all of it's been good. Fuck, man. Aughty, all of his, anytime I get to try his stuff, like at DFO, I got to try so much different shit. A bunch of the people came up, from different states. So that's always fun to get to try different, everyone's shit.
That's a great event, man. That's like one of the best events for that, for sure.
Yeah, it's a cool, well, and it's more like this, like you're going to get together, you're going to smoke. It's more of a sesh based oriented, it's not ego stroking unless like you're going after the pipes to ego stroke. There's definitely the kids doing that, like if you got a heady, you're getting your little ego stroked on. But like as far as like the hash goes, like I think people were more or less just kind of hanging out smoking this year. So like getting to try some different, like I always get to try the local guys in Portland, so that's really cool for me because that's kind of like my stomping grounds down there. So like I love to, all the guys kill it down there. All the hash down there is fucking awesome. So to see different hash come into that circle was pretty cool. Like to see DFO, you know, like there's people that brought up a bunch of like their Master Ball melts. There's, you know, a bunch of these random companies, Frosty. Like there's a bunch of random companies, you know. But getting back to what was been intriguing, any shit from Chris, you know, over at Archive, damn it, Bobby, like it's pretty much anything that those guys drop.
Everything
is just fuck. Like, man, that team is stupid. Like,
it's crazy, dude. It's the entry that, or what? Not even an entry, but the half gram that he put into the hash calendar, the 710 hash calendar, the one that's out right now, was like right when I ripped that thing open, I was like, whoop. That was like the first thing that I just fucking faced the whole entire thing, because it's just, his shit's so fucking tasty, man. And they're killing it up there. Like they're breeding for hash. They're doing so much shit.
Inspirations for us, man. Like I've been friends with Chris before he was working with Archive, and like to see what he's done with those guys, and just it's been cool, man. Like, so it's been very inspiring to see their brand kind of grab a hold of Oregon's rec market as far as hash goes, you know. Like,
what does their stuff go for in the shops?
So I know they bounce around. There for a minute, they were only selling at Archive, but now I know that they do kind of do drops in other stores. So I think it kind of varies depending on the store, but it's, you know, $80 a gram. You know, their full melt's $100 a gram. Oh yeah,
damn, baby boy.
Oh yeah, they got it. It's a good system they got going. They got it's pretty much single source in house because of how Oregon's licensing is, because they go from Burnside Collective to that. So it's such a smart setup, you know. Like it's like I said, it's inspirational. Like it's just,
well, they're breeding too and selling seed, and that's kind of like what's so cool about it. You know, like you said, it's this little closed system that they have themselves because of the way the laws are, but they're able to just fucking geek out, dude. Like and the other great part is that he's so clever, he'll fucking murk you on Instagram too. Like, he doesn't fuck around. Like, he's very articulate, very smart. So it's a cool ass group of dudes. I've had my brushes with them, and I'm stoked that they're at Legends, and I just confirmed that they'll be at Legends this year too. So
dope. Yeah, no, he's honestly, Chris, and that, like, I don't know much of the other guys. I just know Chris, damn it, Bobby. Like, he's been a good homie of mine for
Chris is awesome, dude.
Past few years. He's a great dude. Like just like I said, to see what they've done and what he's done with that brand, you know, what he's influenced, you know, with the hash and stuff. It's been kind of crazy to see. I'm like, it's fucking dope, you know. I'm like, this.
What a privileged position to be in too, to have.
Well, he went from Scored.
So crazy.
He went from Scored, which was a 502 in Washington, and not like, I wouldn't say it's not like a B brand or anything, but it's not like your most desired brand, you know. So, and they just weren't seeing his vision with the hash stuff, you know. So to see from him go from that to picking up a job that was all about what he was seeing and what he wanted to do, was like, that was perfect for him, dude. Like the bet, like that relationship was like Cinderella putting the fucking slipper on, you know. Like, it's,
well, he deserves it too, because he makes such good fucking product. Like, and that's the thing, like when you hear the word privilege, people sometimes think it's like a negative connotation, but it's like with him, it's really like he's earned that privilege. You could tell that he does such a fucking great job with it, that it's insane.
Yeah, he's a cool ass cat. That he deserves, like the strains they're producing, you know, like as a team, like to line him up. Like, I remember when he started there, like they had like something stupid, like 1 million fresh frozen grams ready for him to start with, or so, you know. So like, you know,
Jesus Christ,
he's got the, you know, they're you know, just ready to go, you know. So it's pretty cool to see them, what they've produced. Like, everything they put in that store in those jars is awesome. Like if I have to go to a store, like that's what I go to. Like, you know, I have buddies that work at a couple other stores that will hook me up with stuff, but like me personally spending my money, I go to Archive, you know, if I'm gonna, you know, especially their flower, like the who they carry as far as like Oregon growers go, are like all the best, you know.
No, they're really they're definitely one of the favorites. Is that we were talking about favorite brands, right? Like,
no, he said
that he likes.
my favorite stuff that I've tried this year.
Genetics.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask what you're currently running in your stable. Like, do you have any mainstays, and do you have stuff that you're currently going through, or
Yeah, so we definitely we go through shit all the time. We have some new ones that we're working on right now. The Armorello. We have a papaya pheno because up here, papaya is not really prominent. Like we don't have everyone like in California. Like that's like GMO to people in California. Up here, it's really not. Like so. Especially in Oregon and in Washington, like it's really not that popular. There's not a whole lot of people growing like real deal papaya and washing it. So we're really excited about those two. The Armorello, I'm really excited because I got to smoke some of that at Legends, and that was man, that shit's really good. So we're excited about those two for sure coming up. We have some that we really like already, like the Three Pooties. That's like been one Sonic. We entered a mix wash of that and Rainbow Belts in for Legends. And Three Pooties is, I think that's kind of like our right now staple, like standout strain. Like as far as like if I wanted to give somebody something that represented us, there you go.
what is the cross on that?
So it's it's funny, it's just like some woke shit he had written. It was papaya tropicana, and what they put was T3. But he ended up telling me, like we were talking in the DMs, and he said that it's Chem 3 is what the T3 stands for. So it's papaya cross to tropicana cross to Chem 3, and they called it Three Pooties because he would put 3 seeds in a fucking like a little seed jar, little red disc, the little red disc that they fucking use with the foam, and that's what he was giving out at 3 seeds. Yeah, you got a chance, type shit, and we got lucky, like I would say we could have kept both phenos that we ended up with, but the one's just a standout. It grows very, very well. Super great structure, big tower colas. So the yield as far as plant is there, and then yield as far as hash is there too. It does on a good, a good grow. If the grow's dialed in, it will hit, close to 5%. So like it's not the biggest dumper we have or have seen, but the flavor is so unique that like when someone's smoking it, like you blow it out in the air and it's like this crazy, just tropical, like gassy papaya smell. Like it kind of reminds you like forbidden fruit when someone's smoking it, like in there, like you just know it. Like you're like, oh, what is that? Like, like you can kind of you perk up a little bit, like. So for us, like that's a standout. Like the Three Pooties is a big standout for us. We're running Straw Guava. We run a lot of archive stuff. Dosey Dose 55, Moonbow, Rainbow Belts. Fuck, man, we're running a bunch of the Little Lake Valley Seacoast stuff right now too. So we're kind of like everyone's just kind of like my team, like as far as like what grows producing what, we're always popping stuff, man. Like I have like little sports binder full of cards, like you keep like your cards and shit. I have that full of seeds, bro. Just like, so from every breeder, like so my thing that I did like while I was starting this brand was I'd go to all the events, all the expos, and that's kind of what I did, was just meet breeders and I'd buy seeds and just kind of soaked up game for years. The last few years, that's what I was doing. I spent a lot of money traveling doing that and just kind of like building our seed stock, and luckily it's paying off now, man, because like seeing the futures sometimes is hard, like it's like having going all in on stuff like that. Like I said, I ain't afraid to be broke, so like having a bunch of seeds just hanging out, like it ain't shit to me, like I'll do it again, so like it's cool because now those things are being used. They're not just hanging out. Now we flip through these fucking pages and we grab seeds all the time, and that's what's cool, so like like working through the flavors from different breeders is I think one of the funnest things in cannabis right now. Not being a breeder ourselves, like we're gonna breed in the future, like that's down the road, we definitely have ambitions for that. But not being a breeder ourselves, it's really cool to see everyone's projects, like I have a lot of old projects that we pop sometimes, which is I think we were talking about earlier, how cannabis is kind of circling back, like I have a lot of old projects that we've been going through. Like we just washed a blueberry train wreck, which, you know, it's that old haze, like blueberry terps, you know. So like we have a lot of old stuff that we're kind of like also excited about because we grew up on it, you know, like we grew up on old stuff. Like I'm on the younger cusp of all the, you know, the older guys, but like I grew up with all the old shit, all the OGs, you know. So like I'm right that, you know, like all the old strains I grew up with. It's just it's different because, you know, when you start just grow and you start your brand and shit, like all that stuff got thrown out the window. Like a lot of the chem and a lot of that shit, the old sour, that shit got thrown out, the hazes and shit. Like our area was predominantly like a lemon haze town. Like they grew hella super lemon haze here, so I can't stand that shit. That super hard limonene terp. We won't even do, like, if we wash it, it's for the people. Like I don't. That's not for me. You know, it's not for, like, you know. So like like I think that there's like things that it's cool that we can kind of circle back in cannabis to some of these things we grew up with right now, you know, and seeds are the ability, you know, like, you know, the seeds have been giving us that ability to kind of time travel 10, 20 years, you know.
Out of any of those cultivars that you mentioned, are there any that specifically stand out as better as a fresh press or better as a jam than they would be as a cold cure?
Definitely. I think that's kind of where it results to is fresh press and cold cure or heat tech. All of that is strain dependent, you know. And I think that's where consumers or hashers are widely mistaken of what they're producing or putting out there, why they hate it, you know. Like we were talking about like earlier, there's a lot of strains that I wouldn't feel comfortable stability wise for fresh press, you know, like they're just gonna manipulate, you know. So I would definitely go cold cure.
I guess maybe more jam for sure. Like, is the question, like
that
yeah.
For jam, like I think a lot of people overheat. Like if we're talking like heat tech jam, right? Yeah, so I think a lot of people overheat and we get one-sided terps. You get this kind of one-sided flavor because I think that's more or less what gets, like, I'm just kind of spitballing here. I think that like is what is exposed. One set of that terp is what is exposed, and that's what we taste. Because it doesn't matter what run, if you smoke someone's heat tech that was overheated, it's kind of what you taste right at the beginning. It's like this weird kind of terp that's like right there. You kind of know that it's been heated up, you know. So I think that I've tried some that are great, you know, that's been done right. I've done some that have been done right. Me personally, I don't heat anything up unless it's for the vape pens, you know, or filling the pods up and shit, you know. I don't make none of our jars get touched with heat. Like that's not our style. Everything's cold to room temp maximum temperature. But strain wise, I think you can play with that so hard and find your balance of what is better than the other 100%. Because like from my experience R&D wise, I've seen that, you know, just between cold curing and fresh presses and heat techs, you know, there's some strains that when you did heat them up, they don't really lose terpenes. They kind of get louder, you know, and you can, you know, I tried some from a guy, Cold Gold, I think it's their brand, Addison there. And that's all.
Cold Gold extracts.
Yeah, that's like really all they do is heat tech stuff. It's a lot of jams and stuff. And he seems to have gotten a pretty good tech down. Like his stuff didn't taste super like monoterpene or like weird, you know.
No,
like,
it wasn't all blown out.
Yeah, you know, so like I think like there's such a fine line of adding too much heat with some of those strains that like where you get that weird flavor. But for jam, like for me personally, I would much rather have a fresh press over a heat tech jam, you know, just because hasn't been altered, you know. And vice, like if we're getting onto the topic of fresh press and cold cure, like that is you know, like some strains taste so strong fresh that they kind of need that cold cure to mature out, you know. So for me, like to smoke them, I kind of if I know what it tastes like fresh, you know, I enjoy that, I'll go after the fresh press, you know, more or less than something that's been altered, you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you about Legends. I know we've kind of like touched on it and alluded to it, but I wanted to kind of ask what your overall experience was of that event. I know you're very well traveled. You've been to other events. You've been to Ego. What was your experience at Legends like?
So dude, Legends was an experience, man. Like, so like for us, like we traveled pretty far. Like, you know, we traveled almost 20 hours to get there, you know. So we drive, and it was cool to see a lot of these guys that like I talk to and shit that I haven't got to see in a while, or I have never saw, you know. So that was a cool experience for us. And to smoke their hash was, you know, an even cooler experience. We got to sit there and fucking hang out and shit, you know. So I really enjoyed it, you know. Like we, like me and my partner Andrew that I brought down, like we enjoyed the shit out of it. We had a blast. I would say I'd want it to be longer, you know. Like that was our biggest issue. Was like if it could have been, you know, longer. Like I don't even say two. Like if it was 2 days, dope. But like even just longer of 1 day, I would have loved it. And a little bit more space because we got so much shit. You know?
Yeah, it was. You know, what's cool about it is we've been able to like fix a lot of things for this year's. So that's why we wanted to have all the same makers back plus another 10 makers for like 35 makers total. So it's and it's 2 day now.
I think everybody loved it. It's 2 days now?
Yeah, now it's going to be dinner. You have dinner and you'll get your kit and you'll do some judging and then you leave and then you come back the next day for brunch and then it's outside sitting. You know, you could sit outside or inside or have much larger with booths for each of the makers.
I think like the coolness for us, like what I saw personally was the ability to actually sit down and talk to fellow hashers about the game, you know, like what's going on in this market and what all this shit is, you know. So we didn't have enough time or like the, you know, like the space to kind of move around as much as some of us have liked, you know. But I think that everybody was so geeked, bro, that it was just like
it was fun.
It was fun, man. Like that, like so 2 days. I think 2 days is perfect. Like to have 2 days of like being able to get around better, you know, and it, way nicer because I think everybody. I didn't see one person mad about that event. Like leaving, you know, like everybody was happy, you know.
Yeah, it was. I think we also wished it had gone longer, but we, you know, so there's a lot of things that we added now, so
That's so
it'll
hard.
be a little cooler.
Well, in the first one in America, and like there's a lot of firsts, bro. Like it's a hard parameters to go around, you know.
I think for it being our first attempt and for us kind of trying to figure out as much as we had to figure out, I think it went really well. And then we were left with a few things that we were able to now adjust and open this thing up more. And so it's like what we did was went back and looked. Once it was over, we did a full con ops on the entire operation. And like we sat down and like conceptually went and looked at all of it, every single piece and component. And at that time we sat down and started to just make notes of like, all right, we would do this different. So now it's like, well, you'll get to have your phone and your camera because we think it'll promote it better and put more info. And that's more of like just that matches more of what is going on right now. You can't tell someone they can't, and you know, and all these different things. And that's, so there's that part where people will be able to have their phone. We think that'll help. There's the second day is a big part too. So now there's more time to judge.
Bro, people had 2 phones and were sneaking the other ones in. I thought that was hilarious. I was like,
scandalous.
Just
scandalous.
So they could get a photo. I was like, this is crazy.
Well, that's the other part too, is we realized that like you really can't keep people from doing it. So then you're just gonna, so now you're like making criminals, you know? So it's like, we don't want to do it.
So for us, man, like I thought that was a cool part because it forced a lot of these people who are stuck on their phones to be vocal, you know. And I think a lot of the cannabis community is so they feel safe, so easy to hide behind their phone, you know. So a lot of people, if given the choice, will sit on their phone and hide and not be communicative and talk and shit, you know. So I think what you guys provided was perfect, you know, like that. You know, like I enjoyed that 100%. I thought that was one of the coolest parts. Like forcing people to be people is good, you know. That's not weird, you know. Like what's, you know, like I thought that was cool, you know. Like I think there needs to be more of you know, like not forcing, but more of a highlighting on let's be actual humans, let's be social, like let's, you know, you don't got to be so cliquey, go meet some people, go, you know, like, and that was what was cool when we did Thanksgiving, you know, at your spot, like I got to meet people that I've never met before, bro. So
yeah, that was fun.
That's what I came there to do. I came there to network, I came there to meet people, you know, so like I think that is for the events, like I think to take away the clickiness as much as possible is huge, because a lot of these people know each other, bro. Like, so it's, you know, to if you know each other, it's human instinct to go where you know and to hang out where you know, so like it gets a little odd, you know. Like I sat at a table with cold gold and gold country extracts, and both of those guys were fucking awesome, dude. Like I talk to those dudes all the time now. Like Gold Country's they're the homies, you know. So like
awesome.
I wouldn't have had that ability without like the phone being taken away and us being forced to hang out. You know, same with Burko. Like I didn't was like maybe we talked before, but like I talked to him decent amount on IG now, you know. So it's like, you know, some of these cats, like it was cool to like be able to actually chop it up with, you know, like Mad River.
Man, now you got me wanting to fucking take the phones back. God damn it! Like what?
Oh, I could care less about the phone.
You got me going both ways. I'm not sure. No, I think you make a great point though, because it did put people in front of each other. And it was something that, you know, because like you said, people fucking snuck phones in anyway. There's videos that I saw that were posted up. So
I think it's hard to not have a phone in an event now. I think it's either got to be incredibly controlled or it's got to be just let go. I don't know. I think
you need like a metal detector to really make sure.
Pretty much, you're gonna, like, people are so stuck on these things for, you know, whatever it is, whether it's work or social or just like, you know, they're just stuck, man. Like you have the world at your fingertips, so they're gonna jump on it.
Well, I know for myself, I definitely have to like be very aware of, you know, of all of it, because it can be a bad thing, but the convenience of it's awesome.
It's easy to get lost in it. Like it's very, very easy. Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about glass.
Okay.
You, I know, are very involved in that scene, and I wanted to ask when that started.
Man, so me and my homie, like I said, my brother Andrew, we started a glass gallery. What's that? 9 years ago, 10 years ago. So I, you know, fresh out of high school, besides hustling, just didn't really have a plan, was being an idiot, you know, just kind of went through my experiencing phases, you know. I was, you know, fucking around doing, you know, random party drugs and shit, and like was done with it, you know, like just kind of phased out and was like, I gotta grow up and start doing something, you know. So I remember we were sitting at the house and I literally looked at him and told him like, yo, bro, we should sell glass. Like I can sell it. I had always been buying glass. Like I remember when I was 17, I was paying people to go to the head shops here in town to get me random shit. Like, hey, go in there, grab me a few pipes. I give them $100, grab me like 3 or 4 spoon pipes, you know, or a bong or whatever the fuck it was. And as soon as I turned 18, I go into the stores myself and I'd buy 2, 3 bongs, you know, like, I had a crazy thing happen to me where I had the cops come to my house when I was like 18, and I had like 20, 30 bongs in the house, and they called it the bong shrine. Like they're radioing back on the fucking radio, and they're like, hey, we have the bong shrine. And my parents being old school stoners and shit, where they, you know, my dad's listening to the scanner, and he was telling me about it after the cops had left my house, and he was like, yo, they're calling your house the bong shrine. You know, and he's like tripping, you know. So glass was always a fundamental of my smoking stuff, you know. My dad had a pretty good size glass collection, you know. Even being homeless and like traveling, like I remember like they had a box full of random cool ass pipes and shit. Like one looked like a dagger and like just cool shit, you know. Like you know, when they got their shit together, they had all sorts of random glass, you know. So glass has always been like a foundation for my smoking, you know. So I started collecting early, and then we started that gallery at like I was 19 or 20 years old. Started the gallery. We actually started, it's called the Smokehouse, and we started it in an actual house. that was commercial mixed property. It was commercial residential mixed property.
Oh, cool.
And it was a few blocks away from our high school that we graduated from. So I literally still had, you know, a little bit of the roots that I still had in high school, you know, from just graduating the couple years prior, to sell to all these kids that were turning 18 years old or not 18 years old, you know, that were right there. So we literally turned the neighborhood upside down with selling. My original plan was just to sell glass, and I met a guy named Infinity Glassworks, who was like, "You're gonna have the worst time fitting into this scene selling Chinese import glass." So like that was my introduction to like American made glass. Was this one dude? We found him on Craigslist, and he's like one of my best friends. He's an awesome guy. It's so crazy. We met him at Starbucks. He blew our minds about glass, and we started buying American made glass right then and there. Like I started buying local. I started looking up all the artists, and that's how I got into the scene. I got into the glass scene because one man just told me like, "Yo, bro, you're gonna have a hard time. You're in the Pacific Northwest. People do not want import glass. There's tons of glass artists." He's like, "You could skip a rock and hit 5 of them." I did not know that. You know, I had not the slightest clue that's how it was, you know. So
you're like sitting in the Mecca Medina of fucking glass blowers, like.
Yeah, you know, so I think for us, like starting the glass gallery originally was just about money, and you know, and that's all it really strictly was about. Is we were smokers that I knew I could sell glass. You know, I had a passion for glass, but it was about money. And then when I like sat with this dude, and like as I started buying local glass and I started experiencing more shit, it just changed. Like flat out changed. Like it, you know, I got into the scene. I met tons of artists that became my friends. Like this is a piece that I'm hitting right here is an let me get it in the center here. Is an Ambrose, and that's a local guy. It's like one of my really good homies. I got another one right here, and that's pretty much all I collect now. Like I have tons of glass. Like I have, you know, tons of shit for the store still and everything. But as like collecting went on, like I just kind of stuck with uh, what I liked more and like what made sense to give people money. Glass industry is huge, so if you pay the wrong people's pockets, you know, it's pretty easy to do, you know.
Do you still have the same passion for it that you did then today? Is it still something that's...
I don't have the same passion to like run the store and stuff, I would say, as I did before. Like I used to love doing that shit. It was fun. The scene here has died, so that's a big reason why that passion has gone. And then too, the scene period with glass has gotten different, you know. So my glass passion will never go away. I'm always gonna have glass. I'm always gonna enjoy it. I'm always gonna know the artists, and I'm always gonna have passion for it, you know. So that's not gonna go away. I think my urge to buy glass all the time has gone away. You know, like I don't have the urge to like at DFO. Like I bought a $40 carb cap, bro. Like, and it looked like one of the little Mario bombers, you know, like from Mario or whatever, you know. And the only reason why I bought it was because it was cool. Me and my girlfriend laughed about it. I was like, this is pretty tight, you know. So I grabbed that, you know. I think I got her a pendant too. But besides that, like I don't do what I used to do. I'd go to DFO and just buy glass, you know, especially for the store. I would just buy it, you know. So like, I think the passion has settled more into like I couldn't even say a collector because I don't even collect like that anymore. So I would just say like I still got love for it, you know.
Yeah.
Understanding and love, you know, like it's just hard. Glass is a hard one, man.
It's a way of life. Like to be a heady boy is a way of life. It really takes a lot of commitment.
Yeah, well, and then the scene's just weird with a lot of the heady boys. It's just, you know, a lot of them are growing up at a weird rate, and they have such exposable income that they don't realize it, you know. So like they come off pompous or they come off nice one time, and then vice versa, they're pompous the next time. So
it's a weird world.
Yeah. So it's a weird one. So glass for me, you know, over time the scene's gotten different, so I've just kind of changed it, you know.
Yeah.
Who were the artists that you were collecting when you were buying pieces?
Oh shit. man, everybody. I've bought all sorts of stuff. Dock glass, Ambrose glass is like a big one I collect. I'll name off a bunch of the locals that I've collected here: Brando, OG Badger glass, Domer glass, Bowman glass, a bunch of those guys. I have like stuff from like the Team Japan artists and stuff like that, like Yoshi and those guys. I got Combo, Royal, bunch of random Royal stuff. He's a local friend of ours. Like he's a local guy, really cool guy too. JD, yeah, there's I could keep going. I don't even know. There's so much glass, bro. I have so much. If I showed you my table, I just took a display down in our house. My glass, like a lot of my collection, is literally all over my countertops right now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Like my countertops are completely taken. My girlfriend hates it. She's like, "What the fuck?"
And do you guys still have the shop now?
No, so I had a shop with Kung Fu Vapes, and we were doing a collab store in downtown Spokane, and I just didn't really come out on top with the scenario, and I didn't with COVID and stuff. It just didn't make sense. Rent and everything, and this, like I said, the scenes here is just dying. So I just kind of like closed it and was just doing the Instagram thing, and it got to another point where I was just mentally like, I'm just rather focus on Terptopia. Like it doesn't make sense to do something that is, I'm just dragging dead weight.
Yeah. It's a burden in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. So if I redo it, it's going to be something that can run itself. It's going to be small. It's going to run itself. It's going to be a small, self-sustaining gallery that of the rest of the shit that I have, that I've collected, and I have, and kind of just maintain it off of what the local guys got to do, because I have love for the local scene. I got a lot of love for this local scene. It's just different. The glass scene is different. Like like here, it was all about like local people, and then it blew up into who you could buy online, and they were late to the party. So it just killed all the stores, because all the stores geared up to, fill their stores full of shit, because they were doing great. And now all the collectors just buy shit online. So it was just,
well, the stores can sell online too.
Yeah, but
you just got to adapt,
Yeah, they didn't adapt hard enough, because a lot of I would say the artists here sold directly to collectors. And that's where they also fucked themselves, because it was a race to the bottom. You sell the collector, then you got to sell it cheaper, and then the stores aren't buying from you, so then you're selling glass. So it was just like a really, really good scene, because we had you've heard of Peace of Mind, obviously, probably.
Oh yeah.
So Justin's from this city, from Spokane, and he ran the glass scene. So to have I had a small gallery that took a decent chunk of the pie from them in another gallery called Puffin Glass. And Puffin Glass actually sold their entire collection to Hitman Dougie. And so it was like all those banjos, the R2D2 piece and the helmets and all that. That was all originally in my city. So the city here did great for glass for a long time. It was a glass mecca. All the guys came through here. Quave used to hang out and blow glass here. Elbow, all the guys that came through here. It was a mecca, so it did great, and then it died, and it's just kind of stayed stagnant, so I think that's kind of where glass went.
Yeah,
it's
online now, it's like
it's hard.
The shops are banging. That's what's weird though. I think it's just like when you see a shop that's successful now, they're selling online, they have great relationships with the blowers, they know how to throw events in shop. And if they're in a state where cannabis is legal, like we go in California to the shows, and it's like everyone's just dabbing in the shop. It's like, woo, like it's the best experience. It's super nice. So I think in those places where it has a better environment, they're doing pretty good from what I see. But I'm talking California. So.
And I'm not sure if you're familiar with 50-Second Glass Shop, but
50-Second up in Washington.
Yeah, like he came in and decimated the glass scene, period, because a lot of what people were doing was selling pieces at a very inflated price. And so when he came in and was buying pieces and selling for what he got them for, it kind of changed the game because no one had done that tactic yet, where they had taken over a market and got popularity and got friends by just selling glass. You know, he didn't need the money, and by no means did that man need, you know. So
did Kobe own 52nd?
It's actually like an old backing. They own Sam's Smoke Shop, which is like one of the biggest like chain of smoke shop stores like in the country, and they're connected to a butane factory. So their money's long. They don't need anything to do with glass. The uncle, he let his nephew pretty much spend money and started take half of his smoke shop and turn it into a gallery. And that's 52nd Glass Shop in a nutshell.
Yeah, they did. They do a lot of mothership, right?
They do a lot of everything, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. It's just a little strip in the middle of fucking nothing, and they got tons of cases full of glass.
Well, that's where you go if you're looking for some headies.
Oh yeah, if you're looking for a deal and you wanted something, that's what I'm saying. Like a store like that really hurt like Washington, but just the glass market as a whole. Because glass artists, one were like, "Yo, you just sold that piece for like what I gave it to you for," and they didn't. You know, they're tripping because they're collectors that want their shit want it for that price now. You know, so it's.
Well, what I'm wondering though is like that model can't work for that long because you're going to burn so many of the blowers. Then
no, because some of the blowers didn't care. They're just like, yo, if you're going to cash me out every time, I'm getting cashed out.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that's sometimes when things are less sophisticated,
it's because some
kind of get to that place, but
don't make 100 pieces a year; they make 20 pieces a year. So if you can sell the one to make, you know, and sell to another gallery your 20 pieces and they're all sold, fuck it, forget about it. You're gonna sell it to that guy.
Yeah, you're gonna get them out there. I mean, that's, you know, and there's always going to be somebody who has just money and they don't see it. You know, I mean, everybody's done it. Like you sold a piece and you know lost money on it or whatever. So
hundreds, bro. I've done it hundreds of times. Like store, like you just kind of like. For me, like having the store and selling something for cost or for less than what I got it for just to get it out was one, to get it away, you know, and get it sold was to just keep new product going. But two was to see someone just get happy with it, dude. Like to see
you can stoke somebody out.
Dude, they could see someone like actually genuinely stoked with it and I don't have to look at it no more. And I'm like, tight, cool. It's the things.
Well, then you have money now to buy something else, you know, flip something else.
Model, keep things pushing, man. Always keep it pushing. Like, you know, like if you're stagnant, you got to keep it pushing, man. Like in that with glass, a lot of artists don't realize that they'll stay on one design or they'll beat the dead horse of that one piece that they've been trying to sell for 2 months, and then people don't want it. You know, gotta keep it pushing.
100%. So, in addition to the glass community, the cannabis community is also in a pretty rough spot right now, both on the traditional and regulated market side. What is your outlook for the next 3 years? Are you optimistic? What do you see happening?
I would tell people to buckle up because it's definitely gonna get a little weird. You know, if you're not going through and trying to do new things as far as strains go, what you're producing quality wise, whatever, it's going to be hard for you, you know. And if you don't stay in your own lane and do too much, it's also going to be hard for you, you know, in the next few years. And I think that's why getting back to of just like, we try not to bite off too much that we can chew, and we just try and stay in our own little lane in our own class, like, you know, and that's what I'm going to stick with, you know. Maybe we'll expand, you know, and try and hit one of these rec opportunities eventually, you know, if we have to in the next couple of years, you know. But for us, you know, we're just going to keep it small and keep things, you know, boutique, you know, because that's where I think it's headed. You know, if you're not a boutique brand that has things to offer that people genuinely want and you have a genuine following that's not paid or fake, it's going to be hard for you, you know, like that organic following is everything in this market. Look at wineries, you know, breweries, all that. Like there's people who drink shitty beers, but they love it, you know, and that they're going to love it, you know. So as long as you get some sort of following that loves you, and you stay with it, you know, and you keep providing them something that they like, you'll be fine in the next 3 years. I think it's, if you don't have that following that you can provide things to, you're not going to be fine in 3 years, you know.
Do you see value in looking to partner with groups on the regulated side, or do you feel as though your brand will have more value if you hold fast and wait some time before
this is
those doors?
Battled with, bro. This is one that I, you know, it's everyday battle, and I've seen companies that were doing great beforehand that turned hate life and really struggle and not do well, and I've seen some that were not doing so well that went wreck do great, and I've seen some that were doing great before do great after. So it's for me, I got to find the right deal that makes sense, you know, for my team, you know, like I it's not just me, you know, so like I got to make sure my homies, they're all good. Like, you know, if we go into something, we're going to make sure that like, I got to bring the team with, you know, like I'm not going to go into a deal that is blind to just sell our name, you know, like that's the thing. Like I'm not doing that, you know. So where I find value is just that safety of the license, man. You know, like if we can find somebody that meshes our goals and meshes our future and shit, and they want to license up with us and give us that ability, that's where I find the comfort with it of doing it. But for right now, it's just so hard. A lot of vultures out there, you know. They see something they want, and they want to take off more than what I have of it, you know.
100%. 100%. If you had to name one person who assisted you in leveling up your solventless acumen, you know, was there one individual or person that really helped you learn, or were you all self-taught?
I would say it was definitely local, that helped me learn, you know, like it was my homie Joe. He helped me a lot. He's helped me a lot learn the solventless route, you know. But as far as like internet goes, and like paying attention and like seeing people do things, I'd have to say like Ken Wall, like 100%. Like without like watching his shit to a T, he's definitely helped me out a lot, you know. Cuban, like both of those guys, like just watching what they did and trying to emulate like what they did. Like Cuban was out in Washington for a while, so I got to have that like little bit of a relationship of talking with him, you know, and shit like that. So it's, you know, like those guys definitely as a whole, like all three of those names I mentioned, definitely helped me with my solventless inspiration and this brand.
So when people ask you about getting into the cannabis industry, what advice do you give them? Do you tell them to come in, or do you tell them to maybe seek employment elsewhere?
I would depend on what they're trying to do. You know, like if you, where I'm at, like I said, 502, I would tell them to stay the fuck away. You know, it is not, you know, and I might get flack for this, you know, but I have not met too many people in Washington State's legal system, 502, that are having fun. There's really not a whole lot of them. Like, and every brand that I've seen has been spitting out, or they're just kind of floating, you know? So it's, that being said, the consumers that come in aren't that educated. They're not after the most desired like products like we enjoy, you know, like we want the best products that we can usually smoke. I doubt we're going in there asking for $20 ounces of flower and shit, you know. So dealing with that, it would be hard. So like telling someone to like, hey, you want to go work at a rec store in Washington, I probably wouldn't tell them that, you know. If they're super retail oriented, you know, server oriented style like that, yeah, go ahead. You might enjoy it, you know, at a faster paced store. A slower paced store, you might fucking hang yourself. you know, like, you know, you're not doing nothing but maybe counting inventory if they even let you do that. You're just kind of hanging out, you know. So, and then it goes into like, are you going to go be a trimmer, or what are you going to go water plants? You know, like this, what are you going to do in the cannabis industry? So it'd be hard for me to like, you know, if I were to tell them about the 502 side of like, yeah, go sign up and be, you know, have a job. But like, if you're genuinely wanting to know and wanting to get into it in any shape or form, I would say go for it. You know, like cannabis is awesome. You shouldn't be afraid to try it at all. You shouldn't be try to do anything, you know, but be careful if you have money and you're going into it and trying to invest and shit like that. You know, there's a lot of people spending blind money in this game, you know, and I think that is, people don't really talk about that because there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of these sheep that are coming in, and they're letting them spend it up, you know. So like, and they're spending it up with them, you know, and that's when it comes to with like the licensing shit, you know, like you could, you know, I could take someone's money right away, you know. I'm not doing that shit, you know, like that's, I'm not gonna spend someone's money, like fuck all that. I think that if you were to get into the cannabis game, you better already have a passion. You know, you better not try and just learn this shit. You know, it's not at that point anymore. It's so consumer oriented. It's not like a teaching game anymore as much. You know, like before we were kind of taught it. You kind of were just brought up with it. You know, like it was like a teaching. It was part of your life. You know, it's not really part of your life as much anymore. You know. Like especially if you're in a legal state, like you're turning a certain age waiting to go smoke like that. We didn't have that. Like fuck. Like wait till you're, you know, like that. So I think it's just different. Yeah.
For sure, man. I think that's sound advice. What in the last 5 years, like what is one thing that you champion as being your proudest moment? Like whether it be like a cup win or mastering a wash or completing a harvest, like what would that be?
I would say just dialing in our process, you know, dialing in our washroom, dialing in what we do, just getting to the point where we're at now, you know, as a company, you know, like there's a lot of growing pains, a lot of shit like that. Like I'm really just proud of what it's turned into, you know, like in the last, you know, 5 years, you know, like I started this brand in 2017. So, you know, it's been 5 years, you know, pretty much for the most part on the cusp of like 6-ish, you know, but, I would definitely say just being proud of where we're at now, you know, like I'm proud that we got offers to go to Legends and shit like that. Like, you know, like there's not everybody who got that, like, you know, like that's a pretty cool thing, you know, like, so I'm just I'm more or less just proud of like being able to build something with a following that's organic. Like I was saying, like if you have people that actually want to fuck with you, you'll know it, you know, and like that's a pretty cool thing. Like I have people who actually fuck with me. Like I have people who hit me up on the regular and want to hang out or want this hash or want, you know, to know what's going on with this brand. You know, like a pretty cool thing. Probably one of the other cool ones we sold. I did a mood mat collab years ago, like right when mood mats were getting super popping 3-4 years ago, and we sold the fastest amount of mood mats that they had ever seen. It was 100 mood mats in like 55 minutes, you know, or whatever the fuck it was, 53 minutes or whatever on their website, you know. So like that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome.
That's cool.
Were you a huge fan of
Terrptopia?
Terrptopia? Yeah.
That's the inspiration, bro. Everyone wants to know about it. That's the inspiration. So what I did is I definitely drank the fuck out of that as a kid. I was a fat kid.
I did.
I was a fat kid growing up, so I drank the shit out of fruit.
Is it still around or is it gone?
Canada Coke product. I actually had a guy who hit me up who works with them and was like, "Hey man, like cool product, you know, cool branding." He was like, just, you know, like cool that you guys changed it. You know, he was just letting me know like I could have been sued if I didn't change some of the elements, because when we first dropped it, I still have the logo. I didn't change any of the fruit. All I did was the font. I didn't even change the font. I just changed the text in the font, and that's what I ran with. It was the same shit, their same shit. Like, and I'm so lucky I didn't get like at least somewhat popular when we first were using that, because they are a legally licensed Coca-Cola brand, you know. So we changed enough on it now, and that's where it came from, you know. Like Fruitopia expanded the limits of drinks of what they put into it. They were the loudest fucking most exotic things around on the block, you know. So like that's where I was going with this, you know. Like you want to be in Terptopia when you smoke, you know. That's the euphoric effect you want to feel, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the name. I mean, I grew up drinking it, so I think that's
you're that see the shirt and they lose it. They're like, oh, you know, they don't even know what it is, but they know what it is. It's a that like Bernstein Bears effect moment, you know, like they just they know Mandela effect, you know, like
100%.
Yeah, they know what it is, but they don't know what it is.
So what's next? Like, what are you building towards this year? Like, what do you got going on coming up?
This year, next is we're dropping another website for our merch. I'm partnered with this company called Merch Inc. that is I don't know how to explain it. They are local to Portland, Oregon, but they're not. They're based out of California, in essence. You know, they're base of operations. But so we'll be doing a lot of merch with them. It's a good friend of mine, Alex, that I've just been kind of partnering up with, just getting ready to do stuff with that. Because the merch has been like a really sought after thing for us. As thankful as that is, you know, like the people want it. You know, I get hit up all the time. Can I get a sweatshirt? Can I get a mood mat? Can I get this? And we don't have it. Like I do limited runs. Like I don't have boxes and boxes of merch waiting around and inventory waiting around for people because one, it's a very hard thing to do, and two, it makes more sense to partner with people who are professionals with the merch. I'm not a professional at keeping up with buying all this shit and doing all that. Like I just don't have the time. Like I've ran stores, I know what it takes to do all that. So like teaming up with a company like Merch Inc. to sell all this merch it's been very, very a breath of fresh air. I'm really stoked on that, you know, moving forward. And then just like as far as what we're doing as a team, like we got a lot of flavors we're working on. We're really stoked to kind of like narrow down a wider range menu. We're working on a pretty cool like terp box thing. I don't want to put too much on it. Like we've done boxes in the past. I did like a Valentine's box. I did a Christmas box. So we're gonna do something that's really, really like clean and professional. We're working with a company right now on it, and it's gonna be a box that the first one will feature hash and rosin, and the second one will feature probably flour and edibles. So we're gonna kind of focus on some cooler like niche products that will kind of open us up into other markets as well. You know, like the boxes will be able to, you know, have a little bit more fun with those of what we're putting in them and shit like that. Besides that, we're just kind of looking forward to this, you know, the summer really, like could be the summer being here. Like I said, it's cold all the time where we are, bro. So the summer being here is awesome. We're just trying to bounce through summer, look towards winter, bro, and keep popping flavors, you know. So like that's, you know, we're about flavors. That's what this company was started for, was flavor. You know, that's what we're after. We're gonna keep building our menu, keep getting longer, and just kind of look for like those opportunities like I was talking about. If one comes up that I feel comfortable with taking, that's kind of where I'm headed towards with this company, you know, is coursing it the boutique way. You know, I'm not selling out anytime soon. I'm not going into some random market just to get a check. Like that doesn't make sense to me. You know, like I could have done that 20 times over. I could do that tomorrow. You know, like it just doesn't make sense. You know, so what makes sense to me is longevity. You know, like, and that's what I want. You know, so like just trying to move in the smart way. You know, like you were saying, the industry and the market is in a weird fringe right now. You know, so you gotta paddle correctly and figure out where you're going, you know.
100%, bro. 100%. Well, Max, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time, bro.
Of course, bro. Of course. I appreciate.
Where can people find you besides the Instagram page?
Right now it's pretty much just the Instagram page. Like we stay pretty low key. That's, you know, like if we want to get back to a little bit of something on this company was started, is like we stay safe. We try and be as safe as we can, you know. And so I like to tell people our hash finds you. You know, you know, that's the best way I could say it. You know, like if you're looking for it, it will find you. I promise you.
But you said you guys are going to have a website for the merch and stuff.
Yeah, the merch and all that, you'll be able to get all that. I'll have it. It'll be most likely something super simple, terptopia.com or terptopia.us or something. I'll have it. all that will be produced on Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on Terptopia on Twitter, Terptopia on Instagram. I have to keep fighting with those motherfuckers to keep my page alive, but you know.
Good thing it's still there, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, you know, but to find us in the future, we'll be at any event that we can pull up on the West Coast for the most part. Like I don't travel east as much anymore, the Midwest or any South or anything, but the West Coast, like this is our home. We try to hit everything we can. You know.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys at Legends for sure.
I'll see you at Legends. You know, I'll be there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, bro. Again, thanks for taking the time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Max.